think you got to think about your options. I know that you are technically married now, but that does not mean that they have to live here.
Dale, I think it's time for a change for both of us.
Dad, we're men, okay? That means a few things. We like to shit with the door open. We talk about
muskies.
We go on riverboat gambling trips. We make our own beef jerky. That's what we do. And now that is all wrecked.
We literally have never done any of
those. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another week of Muskies on Tap. We got a very special episode here. This is definitely the most we've ever had on a podcast at once. In one location, we got like a round table here. A bunch of people here in Eagle River gathered together. Max is on. We got a special guest as well. We'll get into that in just a moment, but let's introduce everybody. I'm going to pass the mic here. First up, we got Nick. Introduce yourself, Nick. Well, you've already been on, but.
My name's Nick. I'm a muskie fisherman.
Bait builder.
Yeah.
Handsome gentleman.
I try. Thank you.
Jeremy Barber, acting president of the Nick Amorose fan club and world headquarters.
Trevor Barber, co-president of the Nick Amorose fan club.
And Clayton Spiess here. Just another guy, been on here before, but number one fan. And I guess I got to fish with him this next week. So yeehaw.
Yeah, we're all part of the Nick fan club here. And then next up, we got none other than my brother, Max Manti. How are you doing, Max?
Good. Excited for our first mega PMTT preview episode here. Unfortunately, our other counterpart, Brian, could not make this one, but that is okay. We got plenty of people to make up for it. And luckily enough, we have a special guest here with us this evening who's going to give us a little preview on what we can expect when we head south. And that special guest is none other than Gregg Thomas. Gregg, how you doing tonight?
Good. Trying to figure out how to hold my phone here. If this is being recorded, I look like a lesbian laying on a couch. I'm hoping this is an actual video. I'm trying to find my good angle, so I'm like holding it above my head so you can't see my chins or zits or something. Trevor, you need to cut your goddamn hair. There's a lot of hair there. Like, God, you look like you're wearing a hockey helmet. Oh,
he's got the flow.
Anyway, I'm doing good. I'm cold. I'm warm now. God, it was cold down here today. We had last week was in the 80s every day. And got sunburned, got the first good burn of the year, and now we're today it was like a high of 52, which was pretty darn cool. But this week you guys are coming down. It's going to be nice. We're supposed to be in the upper 60s, low 70s. Saturday they're talking damn near 80. So it should be a nice week. Doesn't look like we're going to get a lot of rain, which is good because we're up right now. But it's not terrible. By the tournament, I would say it's going to be maybe a foot above. We're falling right around 6 inches a day right now. Okay. So, and we're little over 4 feet up. So we're right at 4 feet. So it's going to be right at pool, maybe a foot above. So it's not going to be bad by any means.
That's not as bad as I thought. I looked last week or something like that, and there's flooded parking lots. Or do parking lots get flooded at like 4 foot above, or was that earlier when that happened?
No, I mean there was some. I mean, like Longbow on the south end there, it was flooded. But I mean, they can jerk it down pretty good this time of year if they want to. And our whole deal is the Ohio River. If the Ohio River is really flooded, then they have to hold water. But the Ohio must be going down because they're pulling right around 3,800 cubic feet per second, which is a lot of feet and seconds. And and then the inflow right now is like I think 700. So they're jerking a lot of water out of this thing. We're gonna be.
I really like your phrasing there, Greg. Hey, real quick question. So last year, like we all went to Warwick's and we couldn't even get in there. It was like way too shallow, and they were saying it was 3 feet above. I mean, is that going to be kind of the same issue this year? Or?
No. You should be able to put in Warwick's if it's open. They haven't opened the gate yet. That's the one ramp. I'm trying to think. That's the one ramp that you can't put in right now because they haven't opened the gate. Now they might open it tomorrow. Who knows? But it is usable. All the docks you can walk out on right now. So like all the docks are good. You don't have to wade through water. Yeah, I think we're good. Well, except for the longbow one, you'll have to wade. But like I said, by the end of the week, I think everything's going to be fine. And the water clarity, depending on where you're at. I mean, if you're around the river, it's pretty muddy. But some of Beaver Creek has got color to it. Main Lake's not bad at all. I mean, there's parts on the main lake you can see 2-3 feet down. So it's not watercolor isn't that bad at all right now.
That's all good news, I guess.
Yeah, and water temps are
water temps. What are those?
Are going to be now tonight. It's going to crash. We're actually got a little frost warning tonight. Whether we get it or not, who knows? But today, it was cool all day, and water temps were like 64, 63. We had all that warm weather last week, so it really warmed up, and it's pretty warm down. I mean, I took a temperature probe in like 40 feet of water, and the surface was like 65.4, and the bottom was like 53. So it was pretty decent temp all the way for like the first 10-12 feet.
Hey, Greg.
Yep.
So when do your guys' shad like spawn?
They're probably getting ready to start.
Okay.
I've been seeing them ball up pretty good. Some on the surface if it's a calm night. So it's probably getting ready to start. Probably, if we get a couple more degrees, it's probably going to happen.
Have you seen the fishing actually get better or worse because of the spawn?
I think it gets better. I think it pushes a lot of fish up.
Okay.
I
know Madison, when I had the white bass spawning, obviously that helps quite a bit and stuff too.
Yeah, no, I think it helps. It pushes more fish up, concentrates more fish in areas. No, I think it's a good thing. Today, I was fishing in the river today, not in the lake. So it's, I was fishing out of bounds water, and the shad were just, there were just shitloads of shad everywhere. And the fish were, they weren't blowing up on them on the surface, but there were definitely muskies in there, busting the balls of shad up, because I could see them on live scope doing it. And a few of the fish we caught, they were definitely running shad pretty hard. So I think it's going to be actually pretty decent. As far as weed growth goes, we don't have a ton right now. There is some, because like I said, this water just shot up in the last 2 weeks. So there is some weed growth. Whether it's going to be holding fish or not, I don't know. I've been fishing really not tournament water most of the spring. So I think I'm gonna start actually really hitting the lake pretty hard tomorrow and checking some stuff out.
Well, you totally just answered my question. I was wondering, with the mild winter we had up here, did you have a mild winter down there? And it sounded like the water stayed fairly low. So do you think there would be weeds growing more so than normal for when we're down there?
Yeah, most of the weeds I've seen when I was on the lake are probably 2 feet high. But yeah, no, there is weeds. The mild winter, we were catching fish pretty consistently all through February. And it was, I wish we had have started 2-3 weeks earlier, because the fishing was actually pretty good. Yeah, so I mean it's been nice. I mean, we've had some cool periods, where it dropped. We're having this cool night tonight. But it's gonna yeah, I mean it's gonna rebound pretty good. We're supposed to be back up in the upper 60s tomorrow, then back in the 70s by Tuesday. So when you guys get here, it's gonna be pretty nice.
Well, that sounds good. Well, also, where do you think they are with the spawn? It seems like every year we're down there, there's spawn that's going on or has happened. Some are
Yeah,
done. Is it always spread out like that, where like a
it's
few spawn
always
here and
spread
there?
out. It's always spread out. And the thing is down here, our water's not clear for the most part. Now our a lot of people don't realize this, but in the summer this lake is super clear. In the summertime, come June, you can see down 10 feet. But this time of year where the water's still cooler, the hotter the water gets, the clearer the water gets. That's how this place is. So in the spring, like right now or this month, when you're talking about spawning fish, we never can see them because the water's dirty. So I can't tell you if they're spawning or not. I mean, if they go way, way up the creeks, you can see them. But I mean, these are like creeks that you can't get a boat in. You got to, if you're actually wading or stuff that I did when I was a kid, you could see them doing it. But in the lake, I don't know. I think these lake now the fish that I'm going after in the river, they're done spawning. I mean, these motherfuckers are. It's not consensual. These things are bleeding. It is not good. Yeah, there's no one's asking permission. They're super beat up, the ones I'm catching in the river. The pictures of the ones I've seen in the lake don't look beat up, but they never do. Right? They never look as bad as they do in the river. Now there are some that you'll get a few, but they're not near what you see is in the rivers, and they're not near what you see like you guys see in the spring up there.
That makes
So,
sense.
yeah. So I think there's going to be a little bit of everything. There's some that aren't going to be that just are like, nope, not going to spawn, and some that have spawned, and then there's some that are probably be dropping eggs. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of stuff.
Greg, I can't remember if I ever asked you, but is Cave Run like a put and take fishery? Do they just rely on stocking, or is there a little bit of natural reproduction there?
There's a little bit, Jurassic Park taught us nature always finds a way. So it there is a little bit of natural reproduction. There's not enough to create fishable numbers. So stocking is always going to be our bread and butter. And we get about 3,000 advanced fingerlings a year put in here. And they are, they get put in October. So if you get like a 20 incher, that was probably one that was put in October this year. And so they do stock it. We don't buy fish. They're all stocked right at the hatchery right here by the lake. They electrofish the river below the dam, and they pull the fish out of there, run them to the hatchery, wait about 3 days, squeeze them really good, and that's how the romance is done.
Greg, so you're past champion of Cave, correct? One time or multiple times?
No, just one time. I think I've got every place down here you can possibly get, from dead last to winning.
So when you won it that year, what type of year was that when you guys got it done?
It was a really warm year. A really warm one where we were having like the water temperature was damn near 70 degrees. It was a really warm year. The weeds were established pretty decent, and we got one fish on a bucktail in the weeds, and we got one fish in 35 feet of water on a 10-inch believer. So they were really close together. It was so I mean it was just but it was a really warm spring. Water was decently clear. It was warmer than this spring. too. But yeah, and it was a year that it didn't flood either. It was a year that the water had stayed down all spring, kind of like last year. Last year we didn't have a lot of rain either, and I love it when it's low. I mean, if anybody ever tells you that, oh, I love fishing parking lots, punch them right in the dick because they're an idiot. It is not. It is not fun. It is not good. It's great when you get to go and fish the same parking lot as 6 other people and you just go around in a circle for 8 hours. It's not fun. So yeah, so low water, at least you get to you get to spread fish out and pressure and stuff like that. But we haven't had a ton of pressure this year. But again, like I said, I've been fishing a lot of different stuff up until really up until this week. I've caught a few on the lake, but not a huge amount. And like I said, the lake was pretty muddy. We got like 2.5 inches of rain. The lake shot up about 7 feet, and then it stabilized and is now on its way down. And with it warming up, that's going to really change the water color too. And so I think we're going to have a nice looking water for the tournament, but it'll probably be like every year where there'll be fish caught in 20 different areas. It really spreads them out, and there'll be fish caught in 2 feet of water, and there'll be fish caught in 30 feet of water. I guarantee you there always is.
Well, awesome. Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, we got one.
Yeah, Greg, I got a question. It's a little more like on a maybe a personal level. Did you catch that 50-incher Chippewa flowage where I saw you when we were pre-fishing and I stopped and talked to you? Because me and Trevor have been arguing about this all winter, and I'm pretty confident.
In that little lake that you had to go back in there. No, it came out of Scott Lake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that was a neat little lake. I was told though, if I went in there, they were like, turn off your graphs, turn off your trolling motor, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Why?
I don't fuck if I know. Be like John Detloff out there fucking rowing the boat.
No shit. Yeah, I didn't bring my birch bark canoe, but yeah, we snuck back in there and we're like, oh man, we got this all to ourselves. The water was clear. Right away we had we saw one on live scope, like cruising around. We were throwing at it. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. We're gonna start here. We can get one out of here. And I'm like, oh, there's Gregg Thomas fishing. this isn't really a secret.
It looked good. Yeah, I had one of my customers told me that could be good back in there, and so we went in there and looked. I mean, it looked good, but I wasn't. We never seen anything.
That was the clearest water that I've ever seen there. Like it was crystal clear.
No, it was clear, and then we had fish going up in the other clear water though, on the complete opposite end of the lake. What's that up there? Chief? Is it Chief Lake?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had in that tournament, we lost them everywhere, and we lost them just as good in the dirty water as we did the clear water. It was but yeah, in Chief there was some good looking stuff, and I think we lost 3 in there. But no, that little area, whatever they call that, it's a cool looking little spot. I can see why it holds fish.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we thought we unlocked some super secret thing here. We were just we're like, oh man, just let's take our boat home because we got a new one coming, kind of thing. And I seen you back there, and then there was another guy back there on Saturday, and then there was somebody bass fish. I'm like, what the fuck? Like everybody knows about this little spot. And, I could barely get my boat in there.
Spot?
Yeah, what the hell?
They're firing grenades at them. But no, it did look good in there, but we didn't get any. So you guys are all getting down on Tuesday night, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, good deal. Well, Wednesday, make sure, like I said, come by the boat and we'll have some. You guys can drink beer. I can drink the unleaded stuff and smell your breath. And then yeah, we'll have some burgers and stuff like that. So.
Do we want to bring stuff? Do we got to bring food or just beer?
No, I got the food. Just bring, BYOB. I'm not providing booze for you fucking drunks.
Just because we're from Wisconsin.
Yeah. So no, yeah, it should be good. It'll be Rick's getting down here on Tuesday, and then my buddy Ben from Milwaukee, he'll be here on Wednesday sometime and everything. So yeah, just when you get down, holler at me, and I don't know if you know where the houseboat is or not, but I'll show you where it's at. And yeah, go on over. It'll be good.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you, Gregg, for coming on. That was all good information to get out. Clarify some things, some questions that we had, and I'm sure plenty of the people listening as well. So appreciate your time.
I'm really glad you got to see me tonight. This was a big thing.
We were very
really
happy to see you.
I'm happy for you. It's very nice. But all right, guys, I'm gonna eat barbecue and watch Grey's Anatomy because, well, that's what lesbians do. So
you could put on this Jets Avalanche game. It's getting pretty dicey here.
It's getting heated. Is it 0-0?
Yeah, no, it's like freaking 4-3, man. They're just making it rain.
Oh my God!
There's been fights and everything else. It's I would definitely get into hockey.
I never even know where the puck is half the time. Most of the time, people have to explain to me where the puck is. Oh, all right. You guys have a good night. I'll see you this week.
All right. See you, Gregg. Thanks for
coming. See you, Gregg. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Well, that was awesome of Gregg to come on and chat about Cave Run. I'm sure we're going to chat about Cave Run and stuff more too. The guys are just grabbing another brew, and we are only like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes into this podcast. So I don't know where we want to start it. Do we want to start with this year stuff, Cave, you think, Max, or you want to chit-chat on some old stuff? Going down Kentucky. Hey, yeah, we'll start with that. So
Sounds good.
As we told Gregg, we're going down Tuesday morning to get there Tuesday night to start pre-fishing Wednesday, and definitely going to take into according what Gregg just told us about the lake. It sounds fairly normal, which I'm kind of happy about. As it'll be Max's first time there, it'll only be my second time there. I was getting a little worried when we saw it was up a lot of feet. I was like, I don't know what the hell to do. Never fished a reservoir like that. So happy with that.
All right.
Yeah, no,
so
I've been there. I've been there when it's really low. I was there. I feel like the year Gregg won it, I wasn't there. But the first year I went down, which would have been like, I want to say it was like 2012, maybe. It might have been 11. It was super, super warm. There was weeds everywhere. It was at normal pool. We saw like 30 fish the first day we were there. We didn't catch any, but we saw just a pile of fish and a couple of big ones. I'm like, man, this lake is awesome. I'm coming here all the time. This is great. And water was clear. Shad were spawning. There was fish everywhere. I was figure eighting a gar for a while. There was white. I caught like 5 white bass. I think they were white bass.
Yeah.
There was crappie fish everywhere. It was awesome. Really, really cool lake. It was warm. Green grass. I think we moved one on top water. It was awesome. Then the next year I went down there and the water was like high and it was like 50 degrees and saw my first fish, I think, on Sunday of the tournament. So it was like definitely a tale of two lakes there,
I was gonna ask, since you've been down there more than any of us, like for Jeremy, what I mean, it sounds like the warmer it is, the better the weeds are. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, like the better the fishing typically would be, or has there been certain years where it's lining up different, like where it has been really good when you've been down there?
Well, I only had that the first year we went down, and I might be wrong. I have to look back, but I believe Burseth's won it, and I think they had 5 or 6.
Oh, wow.
I think there was something like 94, 95 boats in it. And I swear to God, half the field was on the Zilpole Flats fishing weeds in and out. And then the other half was in Scott Creek. And then, then the other 10%, over 100, were like everywhere else, which included us. And we actually caught, I believe I had a 35 and some change. and my partner had 36 and some change, and we squeaked out like a 10th place finish by like 3 or 4 points. Like we just squeaked into 10th place with a double. I've been down there in years where that double would have put you in the top 3 all day, and actually one year it would have won. So I mean, it was just, I kind of got a real false hope that first time. It's like going out, first time muskie fishing and catching a 52 incher and being like, oh, this is easy. Anybody can do this. It has not been like that since.
And Trevor, how many times have you made the trip down to Cave?
This would be my 3rd time.
Okay.
Down the Cave.
Gotcha. And so I guess if you're gonna explain Cave Run to somebody like myself who's never been down there, what were your first few impressions when you did it for your first time?
I'd say pretty boring.
Really?
Yeah. It's
How
a cool
so?
place, but like the first one time I was there and I saw nothing besides the fish that I caught on Sunday, the first fish we saw. And then
Gotcha.
last year we didn't see anything until Sunday again. It was saw 2. They were both over 40, but so I was on a beaver, just randomly put on a beaver and saw those 2.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean it was a tough go for you guys. But it was the only tournament you guys didn't catch a fish, or well, you guys did well in Madison and Vermilion. But Clayton and Nick, so you guys have been down there how many years now?
4 years.
4 years?
Yeah. No, this
Okay.
is our this will be our 4th year.
And what was the best year for you guys down there?
Last year, if you count pre-fishing, we did really well pre-fishing, and then kind of burned up our spots, I think, unintentionally for the most part, and got fish caught out from underneath us, which everybody gets that. And I feel like we need to flip-flop our strategy and start the tournament maybe where we think we're going to end the tournament, and maybe we'll catch something early this year, because the 2 times we've caught fish down there have been on the last day in like the last hour or something, because we completely abandon our game plan and go and try something different and then catch one. But I don't know. I, like Trevor said, it's a super cool area, cool body of water. This time of year can be definitely tough fishing, and we've seen it, to where those fish were definitely still spawning up super shallow, following baits but not eating them. And then we've seen it, where they kind of like what Gregg was saying, where no holding back. Once they're done, ready to put the feed bag on, they attack, and that's when it can be fun. So I think yeah, we're all kind of going to go down there and just look for those ones that are done, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to getting down there this year. I was bummed I wasn't able to make it with you guys last year, but obviously Gus was just fine on his own.
I mean, we all felt really sorry for Gus last year because he was just like a lost little puppy in his boat all by himself, just kind of tootling around. And he's like, oh, he texts us, I found a bunch of bait over here. And we're like, oh, yeah, that's probably a really good spot, because there's like bait everywhere. And then like halfway through the day, he's like, is there like bait everywhere? Like, oh yeah, there's like definitely like, but no, it was, we actually got to watch Gus catch his first fish last year, which we were fishing kind of a same general area, and he fished it a little differently than us. We had already gone through there, and he kind of stayed in a different area and kind of fished it just a little bit differently and kind of stuck with it. And as far as I know, I think he actually got both of his fish there. But and it's an area that where Trevor had caught a fish there the year before. We typically seem to see some fish there, but like I say, I've been there multiple times, and that's the only couple times that I've really done well right there. I know it's kind of a community spot, but yeah, it's different water. It's really cool to go down there because there's nothing that we fish that looks anything even close to that. I mean, there's not even an opportunity to fish something like that where you're 20 feet from shore and 30 feet of water, and there's trees 50 yards behind you.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird. I mean, I just from watching some of Gus's videos and pictures and seeing YouTube stuff from down there. It just looks like a whole different world. And I know Gus, when I was texting him when he was in his sad little lost puppy stage when he was down there pre-fishing last year, like that's what he was telling me. It was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like this place looks so different. Like I can't even believe there's muskies in here. Essentially, like it just seems so much different from what we're used to fishing. But I don't know. I mean, like it
the
seems
problem that I had down there the first couple times I was down there, didn't mean to interrupt you there, Max, but
you're
it was
good.
like once you see fish, you're like, oh, they're in this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Cool. There's only 15,000 acres of that looks exactly like this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, there's some areas that are pretty easy to eliminate where you're like, oh, there's nothing here. There's nothing here. But then there's other areas where like, man, there should be fish here because there was fish here and it looked just like this. And it's just, and there's bait and there's, and it's just, there's these little cuts and hollers and things that go way back. And if you're like me, you're always trying to find this like secret key, like, oh, I got this super cool spot that nobody knows about. Like, and the whole place is like that. But it's a really cool area, because like I say, there's nothing like that around here, or anywhere else that we fish actually.
Right. Well, your secret really cool spots are typically the furthest point from the takeoff spot.
Just buzzing all over the place.
I know I'm doing it right if I move a fish and then I go like 25 miles in the opposite direction and I'm like, oh, this is money all day. This is money.
Yeah. I laugh because I remember when we saw you up at the chip when we were pre-fishing the day before the tournament, you're like, I mean, yeah, we got a lot of good stuff going. The only problem is we got stuff going and it's about a 35-minute boat ride between spots that we got fish moving.
That's how I know I'm doing it right. When I have absolutely no plan. What I like to do is I like to like move like a fish on like a bucktail. And I like to drive like 30 miles in the exact opposite direction and then like move a fish on like, like a pounder or something, or I like to get like some sort of topwater action going somewhere in the middle just to kind of mix it up,
That's what we call hashtag dialed in right there.
Oh,
when you
definitely.
get them on
100%.
All right, so Nick, you haven't talked much here to start us off. We need to hear from the man himself. Going down to Cave, what's kind of on your mind right now? What are you looking forward to? What's the expectations? Are you going to throw some of your baits that you've been slaving away on all winter long, or what's your plan?
So I think for the first few days of pre-fishing, I'm probably going to try for crappies and bass.
Standard, okay.
I know.
I'm sure Clayton loved hearing that.
He doesn't need to know. It's a big enough boat. He doesn't know what I'm doing. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna try some of my new baits I made. I got some obviously prototypes too I want to check out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know, like Jeremy was saying though, it's something totally different. I mean, there's two ways you can look at it. I've heard people look at it and they don't like fishing it because they're like the scenery isn't the greatest. Sometimes you'll see a washer and dryer just sitting on the shore, 40 feet up. But I look at what I'm fishing. So like looking at the structure, like he said, there is nothing you ever fish like that. It's a reservoir fishing. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is one of the coolest things ever, how you can be fishing on top of a 30-foot tree.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you don't really get that up in our neck of the woods. So, and I think Jeremy, touched on it one time when I was talking to him. He's like, it's just nice to go down there and touch some freaking green grass, after long winter, like being able to kind of get a jump on the muskie season.
Yeah, last year we left up here up north. I think this road that I'm on is there was like a couple inches of ice and then snow, and there's snow everywhere. And then we got down there and it's like lush green grass and 60s and mid 70s, just gorgeous. That part I did like right away.
I got to tell you, it was my first tournament in my new boat, and I would say I would highly suggest if you get a new boat that's like just in pristine condition and it isn't scratched or beat up or anything, I would say Cave Run is obviously the place that you want to go and get hung up on a log in 30 feet of water and just sit there and spin on it with your trolling motor while you can hear the fiberglass getting ground down into it. Or, when you go in and you hit a tree in like 40 feet of water with your trolling motor and the pieces of your trolling motor hit you in the neck, and there's just something nice about, running around at about 12 miles an hour and just hitting a log that's just floating that you didn't see. Like, so yeah, it was really nice to go there and really break my boat in, really get it tournament ready.
There you
The
go.
way that we like to
Nice.
operate, hitting
Right.
stuff, running into things, it
Yeah.
was pretty awesome.
Yeah. You got to break it in a little bit. All right. Well, maybe we'll revisit some cave stuff. But I think we got a lot to chat about tonight. I mean, we're gonna go over kind of the full PMTT schedule. We're gonna talk about some past tournament stuff. I mean, these guys have been doing the trail for years now and have had a lot of success. So I definitely want to talk about a lot of that stuff too, and all those fun memories. But I'll go with you, Clayton. What are your overall thoughts on the lake choices here for this year, with Cave, Madison, Tonka, and then obviously if we're lucky enough to make it to the championship up here in Eagle River.
I mean, I guess if it means that we can fish in April, I'm still cool with continuing to go to Cave Run. Though I also think there's other states and areas down there that we could go and hit. That would be fun. One of the cool things in the beginning about, with doing this whole PMTT was traveling around and fishing lakes that you wouldn't normally necessarily go to for a destination, but really wanted to just fish them just because it's new and different. And, we're going back to Madison again too. And that was okay, cool body of water and stuff, but there's a lot of other stuff out there. And I think that, they need to go back and change it up more, not just do just a Minnesota different lake or the championship different lake. We should, do even more of them. Minnetonka, I've never been on that one, so pretty excited about that because it's a new body of water. I know a lot of people complain about the pressure out there, but we're used to it here, all of us. So the boats are just a little bigger there, but I think we can adapt and, kind of conquer in a sense, figure it out. I think somebody from around here is going to figure something out, and, we'll be catching fish there. So pretty excited about that championship. If we make it, cool to have it on our home water. So, that's great. I've never, done super well on the home water. I prefer to go somewhere else, but maybe this time of year or in September might be a little different. Pretty excited about that time of year.
Yeah. And same question for Jeremy and Trevor then. What do you guys, you guys killed it at Madison last year, so definitely some good memories and what not to go back on this year. But what are your thoughts on going back to Madison, going to Tonka, and then having the championship in Eagle River?
Well, I'm excited to go back to Madison because that was some pretty good fishing down there. We didn't see any fish like under 40 besides one. And when we would catch them, they would be pretty big. And then Tonka, well, I don't really know. I'm just excited to go there. Different body of water. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said. I mean, there's always that fine line between, fishing what and being comfortable, and then fishing new water. And I could just reach back, when we went to Leech a couple of years ago. I don't think you guys were on a tour yet, but me and Nick had gone there, and Clay and Trevor, and we went there, and by Sunday, none of us did real well. Trevor dumped a nice one. I think you guys moved some fish. We moved a couple of fish, but by Sunday, the tournament was Friday, Saturday. By Sunday, we're like, man, I want another crack at this. Like, I think we figured something out. Like, I really I'd like to get back here and just now that I've had a week out here, I feel like, because it feels like the first couple of days you're really struggling, so there's some comfort in, Madison and in the cave, because it's kind of, but, Tonka is going to be, it's going to be a challenge, but I really enjoy fishing new water that I wouldn't go to. I'm not going to go take a vacation in Minnetonka in August.
Not going to come over to Minneapolis for
I could come hang out with you. I was in Minneapolis last weekend, and it was like 85 degrees, and it was, like 40 here. So that was pretty cool.
Do you guys think it's like those Minnesota lakes just because they're, 40,000 acres plus? That's why sometimes it takes till the final day to figure something out for sure. Yeah, because it seemed like Madison, we I mean, it seemed like everybody was moving fish. I don't know. I thought Madison was great. I mean, obviously, I love it to like switch around here and there, but I'm definitely excited to go back to Madison. But I think just going to lakes like Tonka, Vermilion, and I'm sure back in the day when they went to Mille Lacs, there was probably a few, or Leech, I guess, a few groups that are going in their first time. They're like, oh boy, we got to figure this out in 1, 2, 3 days. I can't even imagine that. That's 100,000 acres. But hopefully one day it goes back to Leech or something. I'd like to go there.
And like Clay kind of touched on it, about a home water, and yeah, you tend to sit, I mean, Gregg touched on it too, he's like, yeah, I've taken every place here I possibly could, from last to first, and I've had really good tournaments in Eagle River, and I've had really, really bad tournaments in Eagle River, and I think you kind of get locked into something, and you want to do it, and you kind of get in your old pattern, and it seems people show up, and and that's always my thing with a fresh lake is you kind of show up and you don't know anything, and Nick and I, and Clay and Trevor, Goss, we all talk about this. I don't want to know what's going on. I don't want people telling me, oh yeah, you got to throw this color bucktail at, here. Like, I don't want it. I don't talk to me. I want to figure it out. If you want to help me with color, because I think I'll lock into something. And if you're doing what everybody else is doing, the best you can do is second place, because whoever told you that is probably better at it than you are. So I mean, I hate following bites. I hate trying to do other people's stuff. I really struggle with that, so I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about Eagle River. I'm really glad that it's just Eagle River and not 3 lakes, because I guarantee you, whatever lake I picked, if you were on that lake, nobody out there would have won. It would have been the other one. I guarantee it. That's the let's make a deal paradox thing that we got going on here. No, it would have been horrible. So I'm really glad it's just Eagle River if we're lucky enough to make it. But so.
Well, let's kind of flush that out a little bit, because I like what you just said there about not chasing bites, especially for tournament fishing. I know Clay and I have talked about this, and it is tough because as much as you learn at all those PMTT events, at the bar and whatever, hanging out with people, and it's nice to get little tips here and there, or get a little guidance. At the same time, there's a lot to be said, Gus. I'm sure you agree with this. With us, fishing all new lakes last year, it was almost nice for us because we didn't have we kind of were just taking everything at face value. There was nothing oh, we should go fish there because we did good there last year or something like that. But Clay, if you want to touch, or Nick, Clay or Nick want to touch on this at all about establishing your own pattern when you're pre-fishing, how do you kind of block out the noise of oh, they only eat orange here, they only go fish this side of the lake at this time. How do you guys really try to dial in your own your own pattern? Jeremy, Trevor too, feel free to answer that as well.
For me, I suppose it seems like we stick with the baits that we do well with normally and we have a ton of confidence in, and then we just go and fish stuff really fast and look for active fish, and if we can start moving fish on our confidence stuff, then we'll stick to that. There's something to be said about fishing with confidence and fishing positive. And, I started off, the first couple of years bringing every single bait that I had at my house and cramming it into our boat and taking it down there, only to find out, or wherever we were going, but only to end up using the 2 or 3, 4 baits or whatever that, we would use just about anywhere else. Sometimes it's just a little color difference or cadence or, whatever, but it just seems like we just go back to our, our confidence, and that definitely seems to help us.
Yeah,
as far as that's concerned.
So when somebody starts talking to you about say just hypothetical, but on Cave, if they're saying, all right, they're really only going trolling right now, do you kind of say all right, F that, I'm gonna, I'm not gonna just get a trolling pattern down, I'm gonna try to, I'm going to want to see for myself, what's going on here on this body of water, if that makes sense. Are you kind of just sticking to what you want to do rather than trying to listen to other people, I guess?
I mean, I suppose if we heard somebody saying that they're pounding them trolling, we'll probably we have confidence in that too. So we're going to go check it out. you know, and see if we, you know, have any kind of results at all with it. And in the same sense, you know, using trolling for scouting and looking for other areas that we can go back to and caster, you know, something like that to what we would probably prefer to do. I suppose, you know, always keeping an open mind, no matter what somebody says.
Gotcha.
You know, I think Clay hit on a lot of really good points there, but I mean, there's things that, you know, confidence baits, you know, and as a muskie fisherman, you always walk the fine line between being stubborn and stuck in your ways and being confident in doing something. Because this isn't bass fishing, it's not walleye fishing. If I'm bass fishing or walleye fishing, if I'm not doing something in 20 minutes, I'm changing what I'm doing. And if you do that in muskie fishing, you could be missing fish. On the other hand, if you stick and just grind, you know, on your old leather ass for 5 solid days doing something because you think that's what's going to go and you do nothing, it's you know, you're walking that fine line. And like you say, like confidence baits, like, you know, I know Clay touched on trolling. I have a bass boat. I don't have rods in it. We don't even bring trolling rods. We are terrible at trolling. I have no patience for it whatsoever. I wish I was good at it. I am not. I've tried it multiple times. I'm doing it wrong. Like, I've caught fish trolling like on accident because I was monkeying around, but it's not a confidence thing for me at all. If they're going on trolling, and that's what's going to win it, we aren't going to win. Like, it's just not something we do, you know. But I mean, there is confident baits and things that we throw that you just work better than other baits, you know, and you're just better at doing it and you have more confidence in it, you know. So if you are going to move a fish, I mean, that's what you're going to use, you know.
So we did get a question on our last pod, what our confidence bait is. And we kind of touched on, like, it's kind of a hard question to answer because it feels like a little, you know, one, seasonal, even in that specific year, and then two, like kind of a year by year thing, at least when we answered. But for you guys, like, you go around the room here, I mean, do you guys have a specific confidence bait? Like, no matter if you're going to Madison, you're going to Cave, you're going to, you know, Tonka, is there one bait that you guys feel good about using, you know, at every single stop?
Yeah. Like a mini mite. Any fish hits at any time. No, I do have confidence baits that I like to use. I mean, it is time dependent, but it really you can utilize a bucktail in any different way. You can go slow with it, you can go fast, you can trigger fish at any time.
You know, I think a confidence bait is something that, you know, here's the thing. I've spent a lot of my life hanging out in a bait shop, and guys will come in and they have a confidence lake and a confidence spot and a confidence bait and a confidence time of year, you know, and they'll sit on that and they'll never expand. And I think us as tournament fishermen and guys that aren't happy catching a couple fish a year, you expand your horizons. And what was a confidence bait last year, I know 2 years ago we had a bait that produced a lot of fish, specifically for Trevor. I think he had, I don't know, 10, 12 fish on this one bait, and to the point where he just wore it out. And last year we couldn't buy a fish on it. So that bait quickly wasn't a confidence bait, you know. But other baits stepped in, and you just kind of keeping your options open and keeping your abilities open and learning how to work different stuff. And, you know, for me, many years ago, it was topwater. I had never caught a fish on topwater. I think the first 15 years I was muskie fishing. And I just didn't throw it. I'm like, they swing at it, they don't hit it. And I kind of committed myself to like learning how to use it, and it became a bait that I use quite a bit around here.
Just to kind of follow up with Jeremy on that one is, yeah, like he said, he learned to use topwater one year. I think for a while, for every year, I was picking one certain kind of bait, like a crankbait, and I would throw that the majority of the year, kind of learning the ins and outs of it. So then you kind of get accustomed to it and you change up your whole arsenal that you know how to use a bait at a certain period.
Yeah, like in that last podcast, I think I had a hard time picking my bait. I think when I specifically said, I just said a suet because I don't know. I feel like at any time of year I can just put that on and it works. But for tournament, I don't know. It's tough because when I think of like a bucktail, I've seen that one go in waves like year by year where I don't know, Max, if you remember some of those larger ish bucktails like an IC9 or double 9, double 10 were lights out for like a month, and then we thought they were like the best ever and got a bunch of them, and then I don't think I've moved a fish on an IC9 in since like that day. And then they've always been on like other sort of staggers and smaller baits. It seems like, I don't know, bucktails can go in waves because fish get conditioned, but other baits like suics and bulldogs, I feel like that's always a standby because you can really, really switch up cadences and how you work them a lot, like big time. And I think that's where those baits I'd have a ton more confidence to bring anywhere. Any sort of pull pause bait. I mean, like a tube, bulldog, Medusa, those are the staples there. And then Suic, Navin, crankbaits, ebb and flow on what I like. I mean, that all depends on rise rate and how deep I'm fishing and stuff. But
I know it sounds stupid, but when you get to talking to guys, and I just had this happen to me at the Wausau show. We were kind of talking about Tonka, and a guy said, "Oh, you ever been there?" And I said, "No, I've never been there. I'm kind of excited to go." And he goes, "Oh, well, do you want to know what they're going on right now? Or what they were going on?" Like, I don't care. I don't care. And he goes, and this was kind of my same issue with the flowage last year. I had multiple people, "Oh, I can't believe you've never been there." No, I just haven't. I should. It's 2 hours from my house. I don't know. I just haven't. And "Oh, well, you gotta be throwing this. You gotta be throwing this. We catch all our fish on this." I'm like, "Oh, well, do you throw anything else?"
Right.
No. Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of weird that fish don't just jump in your boat and bite into your tackle box and grab a bait out of it. Like, they're gonna throw they're gonna eat what you're throwing. And I mean, it sounds stupid, but like I mean, that's the truth. If all you throw is bulldogs, that's all you're gonna catch your fish on. And it's gonna cost you fish. And being good at many different baits. I read an article many, many years ago in Muskie Hunter about that, about like diversifying your tactics. Like, it's okay to be a specialist in bucktails or topwater or whatever, but man, these people come into the bait shop and that's all they throw. I remember many years ago on here in Vilas County, we used to call these two guys the Suic brothers because no matter what the weather was or the conditions or what, all they did was throw Suics. One threw like a black and white one and one threw like an orange and brown one. And they're like, "We caught all our muskies on these." And I'm like, "Well, no shit. Those are the only goddamn baits you throw."
That's all you throw.
Like, and they catch 10 muskies a year. And for them now, they were like, "Hey, that's great." And they only fished on that lake because that's where their cabin was. And this is the only 2 baits that they threw, and that's great. I mean, I guess it would save me a lot of money, if that's what I wanted to do, is just have,
Yeah.
2 baits in my boat, but I mean,
Be a cheap sport if all you needed was Suics
Yeah.
and some backups. All right, so I'll ask this question because I think it kind of goes into like we hear this a lot from people that will like either write in or when our Q&As or people DM us and stuff, and a lot of it's like about breaking down new water, and we kind of just touched on this about the bite, but like I think we all have some similarities in how we do this. So I think we all have a little bit of differences, but like you guys get to a lake, either you've been there or not, how are you setting up those, like, say you got 3 days of pre-fish? What are some kind of like high level points that you guys like have to go check out? Like what are some things you're looking for? You get 3 days to go pre-fish. What's getting you excited about stuff? Like what do you got your eye open for? Just stuff like that.
Well, me and my dad, we usually like to, when we're going to new water, we like to find stuff that looks like water that we've been fishing. So, like the chain weeds, like to fish a lot of weeds. And then there is rocks that look like Canada, then sometimes hit those.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So obviously, before even getting to the lake, we've talked about this before. You're doing some research on, checking out maps and, watching some YouTube videos and doing some research and stuff. But then when we get there, I think what I like to do is I like to go and look for, center structure in the lake. If it's a lake that maybe has only a few humps or some of the longest points that stick out in the middle of the lake, we're going to look at that. We're going to look at current, if there's any current in or out, or if the lake's big enough to have wind current, look for, that. And then once you find those spots, then kind of graph around them and see what the structure looks like and how intricate these spots are. If you can find, anywhere you go, really, if you can find a combination of weeds, sand, rock, or trees, or, or like 3 of those 4 or all 4, or, whatever, that's generally going to be money. And then especially if you can find bait close to that too. I really think that cave run sets up where there's so much structure there. That'd be one particular body of water where you could have all 4 of those things and still not have any fish anywhere near them. That has to have bait. Now, I know everyone says that there's bait everywhere too, but there's different kinds of bait, and to know and be able to read your electronics and know exactly kind of what you're looking at. I'm looking at shad, or I'm looking at white bass, or crappies, potentially, and stuff like that. That definitely seems to be key for that place. Maybe not necessarily on flowage like here in Wisconsin. We don't necessarily need to see that bait to know that there's going to be fish in those spots, but definitely do a fair share of graphing, driving around, checking out these, popular spots, or the spots that, look like they should set up based on other places that you've been, and then just kind of expand from there.
Yeah, but even like more broad too, because I feel like, maybe you and Nick pre-fish a little different than Jeremy and Trevor do. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like, Clayton and Nick, you guys spend a little bit more time like actually fishing, I feel like, than Jeremy and Trevor do. I mean, every time I see Jeremy, he's just got his feet kicked up looking at his graph, driving around for the most part.
That's pretty accurate.
Sending us fucking pictures about 2 humps that look like a pair of boobs.
As the senior member of this group, my energy is very valuable to me, and I need to save it up as much as possible. But no, and I will touch. I mean, I'll say this: in this room that I'm sitting here, the people that drive boats, I'm probably the least talented with my electronics. I mean, Gus and Clay have showed me things that and I have all this stuff. I'm just not as good at reading it as they are. But when Trevor and I hit a new lake, a new body of water, and I know it drives him nuts, but I like to drive around. I just drive around. How does this lay out? What's the geography of this lake? What is this, the old saying, drain the lake. What does this look like? When you go to Minnesota, typically you don't have like steep breaking shorelines. It's a lot of mid-lake stuff, points, things like that. Okay, that's how this is going to look. Now, when you go to the cave, it's very steep. There's a lot of wood. There's a lot of different things. There isn't a lot of mid-lake humps, things like that. I mean, there's stuff that protrudes way out, but I feel like after an hour or so of driving around and graphing and looking at stuff and looking at the map and everything else, I think you get a general feel for how the lake kind of lays out. I mean, is there steep water dropping off of these points with bait on it, and things like that, and you get a kind of a general feel, and then you slap on back to these confidence baits, you slap on stuff that works, stuff you're gonna move fish on, and just see if you can get one going quick, and then build off of that. Trevor and I talk about it a lot. It's observation, and I'm not looking to see what other people are doing, but if every single boat you see isn't fishing the shoreline, maybe you shouldn't be fishing the shoreline. Not necessarily their spots, but if every single boat you see is up pounding shallow weeds, maybe there's something to it. Maybe that's, and not that you're trying to follow people, or if every person you see is throwing blaze orange, maybe natural colors aren't really the key there, and you can just kind of build off of that and just observe what you have going on.
I think that's the biggest point there is like you take the time to like, instead of rushing right into fishing right away, it's like, you're really just trying to kind of feel it out, like observe, see what's going on. I know Gus kind of adheres to that, and I'm in Trevor's camp a little bit more, where I'm like, I just want to fish. I'm ready to go.
Right. I hear you there, and I do too. I mean, big time. But honestly, when we're going to these new lakes, it might be different now that we're going to the lakes again, because you know how they lay out. But when I'm looking at my graphs and I'm fishing a spot, when I want to fish it during the tournament, I want to know everything about that spot. And the only way to do that, at least that I mean, obviously you can go through slow and figure it out, but if you drive back and forth, just as Jeremy was talking about, the topography of it, you really understand a spot. Like you can really find the pockets and inside turns. And I use waypoints like crazy. My graph looks outrageous. I doubt many people could read what's going on. I zoom way in so I can really see the spot. That's just how I get the confidence to fish a spot. I mean, this is all after Clayton already talked about what he looking for, and that's, similar stuff, bait, wood, rocks, points, mid-lake stuff, all the good stuff combined it together. But once we get that dialed in, that's when I like to throw in the auto chart and really really pick apart a spot and kind of find the unmarked stuff. So I guess a question for the other guys here, I might know the answer, but do you guys use auto chart at all or heavy on the waypoints or
Yeah, I use auto chart actually quite a bit. So obviously fishing a lot of spots, you think you know them, and when you auto chart them, like Gus is saying, you might see a little, basically a knob that you never saw come out plateau some certain way, or a little sand point that mixed in with it. So, I mean, I use auto chart quite a bit for lakes that don't have lake maps, or I actually fish the river up here quite a bit, and I auto charted some of that, and you can see some cool stuff. And now that it's pretty low, it actually shows it.
yeah, I think I definitely agree there. So in pre-fishing, what do you what do you guys do right when you move your first fish? What's your like move a fish, not catch a fish, but what do you think fi- other than figure eight? Well, I guess yeah, if you want to try and sting it or not. I guess that would be one of the answers. Like what do you do? Say you have a fish up, your first fish. What do you do?
Usually if it's earlier in the week, we'll try to catch it. But later in the week, when we see a couple more fish, I usually pull out. I don't know.
Hey,
That is a solid answer. Is that boy's father?
yeah, Dad's happy on that one.
Pull out game strong. I don't want to be a grandpa. I'm not that old. No, but yeah, I think Trevor was kind of touching more on like, are we trying to catch this fish or are we not? But honestly, the first fish we move, like we literally stop and like we talk about like what just happened. Like pick your head up, look around, what's around us, why is that fish here? Why like what just happened? Was it the way you were working the bait? Was it the location? Like, I mean, just like stop and take like a minute and just make an observation of like what just happened, and then try to replicate that, and even if it's something that we fished before, we're like, hey, remember that spot that we fished, 3 hours ago? God, it looked just like that. Maybe it's a timing issue. I mean, I've done it before, pull your phone out and look at your soul lunar tables and be like, what's going on right now? Are we in a minor? Are we in a major? Like, is there a weather event happening? Like why is all of a sudden there's a fish here? And if it's none of the above, and you're like, well, okay. I mean, you're just trying to put a puzzle together. I mean, really, and replicate a pattern.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I got to be honest. I'm pretty sure Nick and I, we're on the same page, and we're going to these places to catch fish, and maybe it's burned us a few times. Clearly it has, by pre-fishing. And like you said, we show up to a spot and you see us fishing hard. And yeah, we go, when I said I go and drive around and graph these spots out, but then as soon as we graph them out, we'll go back and fish them. And we fish hard and fast, and we are trying to catch fish. Like I go fishing to catch fish. And whether, obviously I'd rather do it during a tournament, but they're going to eat when they're going to eat, and if they most of them are eating away from the boat, I can only think of a few times when we actually get them on the figure eight when we're pre-fishing.
Right.
Though I will be honest, we do figure eight fish when they come to the boat when we're pre-fishing. It's just a habit, I think, and it's fun to watch these fish eat. So,
Well, it's hard not to. I mean, it's hard not to. Like it's really weird when you're like, hey, if you see a fish coming in hot, like pull out, don't try to catch it. Like it's not an easy. It sounds easy when we're sitting, here in our living rooms, but like, you didn't, like when we go down to cave, like I hadn't caught a muskie in 8 months, 6 months or whatever. And that first fish comes in, like it's gonna be harder to be like, oh no, I'm good on that. hopefully he bites Saturday. I mean, it's always it's easier in theory than it is in practice. It's not. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna try and catch it. And too, like with the confidence, also getting it to eat in the figure eight, you're doing the figure eight the way that, and the speed that those fish want. So if it does happen during the tournament, we're not like, do we hang it in the corners? Are they wanting it hung? Do they want it sped up? Do they, how do they want it? And if we can get them to commit, we can take all the information and just try and replicate that and move forward. But yeah, we are definitely fishing hard pretty much the entire time except for the last day. We'll mainly just drive around and look. If we have something going on, we're going to spend probably the last day and a half just driving around trying to find more spots like that. Probably fishing very little, but for sure the first couple of days we're down in Cave Run or whatever, we're probably going to go fishing and, hopefully catch fish because, like I said, I love catching fish.
Yeah. All right. Jeremy,
I mean, that's just to touch on it one more time. Don't mean beat a dead horse here, but talk about pulling out on fish. I mean, I was the benefactor of that last year. Like 100% sure Trevor pulled out on that 45 3/4 that we catch about half of our fish in a figure eight. And I'm like, that fish was going to eat 100%. I mean, he was actively trying to get the bait away from it. And we came back the next day and we ended up catching it. Had big fish on Saturday and, got us that fish helped us, get a 4th place finish, and that takes, again, like Clay says, I mean, you're trying to catch fish. We're fishermen, and it's tough to pull out on a fish, especially when you have a fish of, that size coming up. That's like, is going to eat, I mean, a million things can go wrong from the time a fish eats to put it in a bag, but I was pretty confident we would have put hooks in that fish, but that's kind of, that's kind of the sword you're falling on when you decide you're going to go tournament fishing,
Yeah, I know that this, Max. Obviously, I don't know how many of the listeners know, but I've kind of gone more in the line of like not trying to catch as many fish pre-fishing for sure, but also at the same time, I don't think I've ever had like a really big fish up to the boat pre-fishing that I can really think of. And a lot of times I've had a lot of lazy fish too. And those all, answer a lot of questions too. But, I think we for sure benefited in Madison for that one fish. But I mean, that just happened once. I mean, I think I'm still always going to be the day before the tournament. Try my best, to not catch a fish if it's, hot in the 8 and it's not like, a super mega giant. I think my mind is going to go numb if a giant fish shows up on Friday before the tournament at 5 p.m. Yeah, probably, or 3 p.m. because we got to go to the rules meeting. But yeah, I'd probably catch that fish for sure. But that just hasn't happened yet, so I'm still on the side of trying to not catch as many fish. But I just don't have as many tournaments under my belt to have this happen yet. So I know one day there's going to be some, big fish, 45, 46 pluser hot in the figure eight on like a Friday before a tournament. And that's hoping to get in the bag, honestly. Yeah.
All right, let's kind of pivot a little bit and talk about some past tournament, some history, because you guys we're lucky enough to have a lot of guys on here tonight that have done really well in tournaments, PMTT, and what's up?
Oh, never mind. You go ahead. You have a question. I was just gonna have one as well, but
oh, you can go ahead. What do you got?
I just wanted to start it off quick on Trevor, if you want to talk about your first ever PMTT fish that you caught during a tournament, and how did that feel?
We were in Kentucky and wasn't many fish caught, especially on Sunday. So we were out there, weren't really expecting anything. Went to a spot where we knew there was fish, and that was the first one that we saw. We just stayed there all day, hooked that one, and after that wasn't that fun because my dad got hooked into a tree and then got the line caught up in the trolling motor, which we had to stop fishing for a little bit, and then came back, saw like 3 more, and that was most action that we've had at Cave in the past 2 years. So that's really cool. Also, that was the day that it got postponed an hour because the weather.
Let me just touch on Trevor's story there just for a moment. So, there was a pretty severe thunderstorms. We were over in Warwick's, sitting in the bay, us and maybe 6 or 7 other boats. And we kind of went out, and it was lightning. Like lightning was striking around us, and I'm like, yeah, no, thank you. I don't play with the lightning. And we drove back, and we tied our boat to shore. We sat in the truck for like an hour, and for anybody that's familiar with Warwick's Landing and Cave Run, there's no internet service there, and everybody's coming up to the trucks like, what's going on? What's going on? Are we going out in this? What's going on? Ease out had already came and passed because some guy came down and said, hey, they're delaying it. Like, don't worry, they're gonna let you know. It's like 8 o'clock, and I'm trying to call and I have no signal. And finally I'm like, we just gotta go. And we jumped in a boat and we went over there, and we get to Albee where everybody eases out, and there's like nobody there. And I call Tim Woodlackey, and I'm like, what are we doing? And he's like, oh, everybody eased out already. And I was like, there's like 8 of us that were sitting at Warwick's, and like there's no signal. And he's like, well, line her back up. And it came down and whatever, and we took off. And so the day didn't start out awesome. We went to a spot. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe there's anybody here. We start fishing, and maybe 10 minutes later, Trevor's like, I got one. And I'm like, oh my God. And we net this fish, and I'm like, this is great. I think he was 10 years old. This was awesome. I'm like, there wasn't many fish caught. This is great. And then like 2 casts later, I hooked a tree, and I went over with the lure retriever, and I was trying to get it out, and the wind was blowing, and there's fish moving around us. And I did something really stupid. I didn't know where my line was, and I gunned the trolling motor, and then the trolling motor stopped. And I'm like, well, that's not good, because the boat like went down. And I'm like, uh-oh. And I'm like, oh, the lure came out, because I felt it on the retriever, and I'm pulling the line up, and I was like, oh, it's going right to the end of the trolling motor. I tipped the trolling motor up, and it's got, I don't know, maybe 2,000 to 3,000 yards of line wrapped around the shaft. And we had no tools in the boat, so we had to drive back to Warwick's. There's fish literally surfacing around the boat chasing bait. And I was like, oh, let's get away from all these super hungry muskies, and let's go work on our trolling motor. So we drive all the way back to Warwick's. I grab the tools. I take the whole trolling motor apart. I get the line out. I retie it. I'm like, there's probably going to be 75 boats pounding this spot. 6 of them will have nets in the water by the time we get back. So I was saying some Sunday swears, and we got back to it. We moved a couple more fish, but we just couldn't hook up again. But it was that fish ended up being huge. Didn't have a great rest of our season. Really shit the bed in Eagle River. Did nothing in Leech, and that fish ended up getting us into the championship. So it was actually a pretty big deal to catch that fish on Sunday. So trolling motor broken aside. But that's tournament fishing.
What was your question, Max, for PMTT to talk about some past stuff? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off earlier.
No, it's a great question. I my question, because it kind of spurred from Clay's answer on a few questions ago, but talked about like when you put together, you feel like you put together a pattern. Like with all your guys' tournament history, has there been tournaments where you guys like feel like you got something nails heading into the tournament that's ended up not panning out, and like vice versa? Have you gone into a tournament like feeling like you're kind of lost and then end up doing well? If you can just kind of touch on that, I'm kind of curious to hear that.
Well, I feel like I've really gotten a lot of miles out of this story, but I'll bring it up again. But I actually did win a PMTT event once, and in Eagle River. So yeah, I know it's whatever. I mean, it's cool, whatever. I mean, we all win, whatever. It is what it is. But I that week of pre-fishing, we could not catch a fish larger than 30 inches. And it was right around the time that the PMTT had switched over to 30 inches. And everybody's like, oh my God, every tournament I catch like 18 fish between 30 and 34 inches. Boy, if they made it 30, we're going to win this thing. Well, the weather wasn't too great, and that week we caught fish, but man, they were all small. And I swear to God, on the first cast of that tournament, I caught a muskie, and it was like 21 inches long. And then like we moved, we got out of there, and the next 5 minutes later, I caught one, and we put it in a net. And I'm like, holy shit, this one might actually be over 30 inches, and it was like 31 and a quarter. But we were doing something that nobody else was doing. It was very specific. It was something I kind of figured out. And our pattern going into the week was basically some of these fish are going to be over 30 inches. Let's just see how many we can catch. And it worked out for us. I think we ended up winning that tournament by, I think it was 4 points. And I think Spencer Berman and Jason Quintano got second, and they had two real nice fish. I think they had a 38 and some change and a 42 and some change. And we had 4 fish, and one of them was over 34 inches. But we had 4, so with the release points and everything else, like I didn't even think we were in the top 10. I mean, honestly, we ended up winning the tournament, but it was just a matter of making that, like, this is going to be a tough bite. Like, we know this water, we know there's fish here. Let's just see how many we can catch. And I know years ago, Waitusik kind of had the same deal, and I think he ended up catching like 7 or something like that, and I don't think he had any real big ones, if I can remember right. I think he had a lot of them, smaller, low to mid 30-inch fish. But I mean, Eagle River is a place where, you can stack them up if you get into something. And I remember I was in a spring classic one time, and a friend of mine, went and caught 8 on the first day. I mean, it was crazy. He's like, yeah, we actually caught like 13, but only 8 of them measured. And it's like, holy crap. Like, I mean, that's, it's one of the few places you could do something like that, so yeah, you can definitely have confidence here if you've unlocked the key.
To answer that question, I guess we've had it, every which way you can possibly think of. We go into a tournament and do really well pre-fishing, and then, change of weather or something happens, or maybe we've, stung too many of our fish, and then we don't do very good and really struggle during the tournament. Most of the time, if we don't have anything going pre-fishing at all, then we're probably not going to do very good during the tournament. And I don't know if that's just a confidence thing or if we just never really cracked the code. We never figured it out. Definitely, it seems to help for us to be on fish and have something to look forward to when we start a tournament. Otherwise, we're, I think anybody can agree we're just fighting an uphill battle, and it can go get us to a pretty dark place really quick. And in tournament fishing, it's so much about mental and, staying positive and, having a game plan, whether you stick to it or not, but always like having something, that you can be like, all right, now we're going to go do this, or instead of just sitting there like, well, now what are we going to do? Or we take off and just shut down after takeoff out in the middle of the lake and be like, well, which way do you want to go? Because neither way worked for us to begin with when we were pre-fishing. So, yeah, definitely, if we're on, we've been on fish quite a bit pre-fishing. Sometimes the pattern sticks out long enough and we can get fish to, go during a tournament, and sometimes things change. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with weather change. And then you just got to kind of figure something else out.
Mm-hmm. Well, so Jeremy kind of touched on, obviously him winning a PMTT event. But what has been like, you think you and Nick's best tournament together, like where everything just kind of came together? Do you have one that kind of like sticks out in mind?
I think the one that sticks out in my mind that we probably should have won and could have won was on Cass Lake. And I know there were rumors and stuff going around that we followed, the team that did win to their spot, but we actually pre-fished it. Senates didn't. They were the team that ended up winning. And we found fish there, and then we left it. We came back Friday, first day of the tournament, and we started off there, and the wind got kind of bad, and my trolling motor batteries weren't great, and I was trying to work into the wind. I'm always trying to work into the wind if I can, because obviously you can control the boat a lot better that way. and I smoked their batteries by 11 o'clock, and we were on fish. I think we had lost 1 or 2 on the spot. We had moved a couple others, and we had to bail out and leave. Basically, the fish the rest of the day drifting with the wind, and I don't know why I didn't think that we could do it there. Maybe it was just that bad that I didn't know, how we would possibly fish it. So we ran to the completely opposite side of the lake, where we had pre-fished and caught a really, really nice fish and thought that we would have a better chance of drifting that area. We ended up sticking one up there. In the meantime, the Sunnets went into that spot shortly after we left. They tripled up and they were in the lead by a long shot. So, we had no idea where they were at, but we both took off close to the same time on Saturday morning, which is day 2. And we ended up in the same exact spot right off the get-go. And I was like, okay, well, this is obviously where they ended up catching their fish. They must have caught them after we left. We're going to give them their distance because they smoked us to the spot. Their boat was way faster than ours was. And we kind of stayed outside of them. They raised a fish. I had no idea that they raised a fish, but my next cast was probably 100 feet from their boat yet, and we were outside of them, and I ended up hooking that fish and losing it. And then we kind of just duked it out there. We ended up catching 2 really, really nice fish, and we lost 3 more, and one was an absolute giant. I casted at a loon, and I know Gus loves it when there's loons around because he's like, oh, there's muskies around if there's loons around, but I hate it. I'm like, get out of here. You're chasing my muskies away. And I casted at the loon more so out of trying to scare it away. And within, I think, 1 or 2 pulls, I was hooked up on something that was an absolute beast. I never got to see it, but you can just tell when, we were in only probably 2 feet of water, and the water that moved from that fish that never actually broke the surface, and the way that my line moved from left to right, it was a special fish. But that day also started off to where we ended up just drifting it because I knew that I wasn't going to make it by trying to work into the wind. So we decided we were just going to drift with the wind. And it got so bad that we had water coming over the side of the boat, and we bailed. And Senate stayed there, running their big motor in reverse, taking water over the back of their boat, filling their boat up with sand. And they got one more to win it, where I think we would have been much closer. We, missed that one by maybe a couple inches or whatever. But I think if I would have fished that a little bit differently and we would have been able to stay out there, I wouldn't have been such a cheap son of a gun and gotten some good batteries for a trolling motor. That probably was a tournament that we should have won and could have won, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, I think Clay touched on a lot of really good points there. I mean, and I'll tell you the truth, the muskie fishing, there's always a little element of luck. Always.
For sure.
You try to turn the tables so the luck falls your way, but there's luck in every and I've won a few tournaments. Actually the first tournament Trevor ever fished with me, it was a tournament that Clayton won, but we ended up winning the father-son division of the Lions tournament, and actually it was it's kind of funny when you talk about following. It just so ended up that we ended up on the same lake as Clayton during that Alliance tournament. I know we've all fished it before, and you have lake groups and things like that, and we had stuck one on Friday, and we felt like we had fished that lake to its full potential. And Saturday we were moving around. We came out, and Clayton was out there, and unbeknownst to us, he already had a 46.5 and a 38. And we kind of came out there and we're like, okay, we'll give you some room. There's other spots out here. And he actually was like, oh no, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're catching them on. This is, he actually gave us a bait. Here, throw this, oh God, wow, thank you. And he ended up getting 2 more. So he ended up getting 4 that day, I believe. And that night at the rules thing or whatever on the board, we were talking to him, and I said, I'm not going to mess with you anymore. I said, we're going to go somewhere else. I don't want to catch a fish on that lake if you could have caught it and it would cost you the win. We have a 38 on the board or something. And he said, well, why don't you go try over here? Try this lake. I'm like, oh, I haven't fished there in years. And Trevor and I went out and actually stuck a 46 and a half, 46 and a half, and actually allowed us to win the father-son division. It was really kind of a special moment for us because I believe Trevor was 8 years old at the time. He got to go on stage and tell his story, and it was really cool. And Clayton ended up winning. But to kind of talk about, and you hear this a lot in muskie fishing, oh yeah, that guy followed me here, that guy followed me here. I can honestly tell you that people in this room that are sitting here, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but people in this room, we watched Gus catch his fish in cave last year. First time he was ever here, whatever. And I said, hey, this is kind of what we're looking for. Gus is a good fisherman. I didn't say, Gus, go here. He's a good fisherman. I said, this is kind of what we're looking for. He figured it out himself. He went there. I'm like, son of a bitch. He's sitting like 100 feet away from where Trevor caught his fish last year. I'm like, God damn. But he's a good fisherman. He figured it out. And we gave him room. We didn't go up there and say, get the hell out of our spot. That's not how we fish. It's not, you're not going to win tournaments doing that, and none of us here, we all travel together. We stay together. Do we talk? Yeah, we talk, but we don't freely share information. We all have a mutual respect for each other. And, we don't do that. And Senate's are great guys. I was really happy for him last year winning the chip. That's awesome. Bring home a championship on your home water. Those guys earned every inch of that, and they're great guys, and, you kind of have this mutual respect, and it's to say that, somebody followed somebody or you're fishing somebody. It's kind of laughable. Honestly, it doesn't happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But it doesn't happen with this group. But
No, I was actually like astonished that first day when I ended up, going to that spot where I stuck the fish, and I never saw you guys there at all. And all of a sudden during the tournament, there you guys are. I'm like, oh, dang.
you're saving it.
It's like, yeah, almost like you guys are saving it. It just like all came together. I'm like, oh, sweet. I got lucky, I guess. I don't know.
What's funny is that Clayton, I don't know if you follow him on YouTube at all or whatever, but he's got a pretty cool video on there of him catching a fish pre-fishing on a cave. And it was kind of a funny story because we didn't know that's where they were. We saw them on the big water. We passed them away. Oh, there's Nick and Clay, and we had no idea that they had caught one. There was no text messages. There was no nothing, and so we pull into this spot. I'm like, oh man, this looks awesome in here. Trevor and I start fishing it, and it was the first time I ever had live scope on my boat, and I'm doing a figure eight, and I pull my bait out, and I cast it back out, and I look down, and I'm like, man, it looks like a musk. I'm like, son of a bitch. Like that was a muskie. Like a muskie completely followed me up, like right there. And right as he's doing it, here comes Gus. He comes pulling up in his boat, and I'm like, Trevor, don't say nothing to Gus about us moving a fish right here. So he comes pulling up, and he's like, hey, how's it going? We're like, oh, pretty good. He's like, you doing anything? I'm like, no, yeah, I have, I've never fished here before. It looks pretty good. He's like, yeah, this does look really good here, and I'm just kind of sitting there like on spot lock, like not trying to move. And Gus is talking to us, and I was like, okay, Gus, like, see you later. Like, get away
out
from
of here.
me, and he went away and whatever. And we were kind of talking about it. I'm like, Jesus Christ, whatever. And it was like, I don't know, maybe 2 months later or something. And that night, we were talking. They're like, oh yeah, Clayton got a really nice fish. I think it was 41 3/4 or something like that. And we didn't ask him where it was or anything, And later on, he put a video up on his YouTube, and Trevor and I were watching it. And I'm like, that's exactly the spot where we had that fish up, and then Gus came up, like the exact spot. Like we were watching the video. It's like we just all three of us just kind of like converged on this one spot, like just complete like randomness, And Clayton stuck a real nice fish here, but none of us knew about it. And of course, none of it, they weren't like, oh yeah, I caught a fish right here. Like none of us knew about it. It was kind of a cool part of it, But
Yeah. That is always like probably one of the funnier things when we're all staying together, just like the information sharing, like you touched on. Cause like, we're not out on the water all the time. So like when we go back to the cabin or whatever, we stayed together at, obviously like we've talked about, I was not at cave last year, but we stayed together at Vermilion, stayed together at the chip. And it's just so much fun to like get done at the end of the day of pre-fishing and like chat with you guys about like what's going on, but like say stuff, but you're also not really like saying anything, if that makes sense. Like, you're kind of being like, all right, here's what we're doing or whatever. Like we share information, we like have it be open, but at the same time, like you were saying, it's a mutual respect thing where, you're not going to spot burn places or whatever. And it's always like really funny conversations on top of Nick's rapping. Is he gonna fall asleep over there? I don't know what's going on, Nick. He's going down, it looks like.
I got some of Nick's rapping at the Wausau show, and I gotta say it was pretty
Nice.
awesome.
He's great.
I really
Freestyler
enjoyed
of the
it.
generation.
He was freestyling with Mike Keys,
Oh yeah.
and Mike Keys actually started dancing, so that was like the best part of it.
Nice.
So,
Gets
yeah,
the people
he
going.
was breaking it down. He had like the hands out and like the whole deal, and it was
it's
was
it's
pretty-
provocative. It gets people going.
Were you rocking that Bass Pro Shops hat when you were? No, that's a special. Yeah, you saved that. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
That's where I got it from. It was in the middle of the lake.
It was like Christmas when Nick found that hat on a dock.
Not just for me, but for everyone else.
He came running in with this Bass Pro Shops trucker hat, and he's like, "Somebody just left it on a dock."
Can you believe
Is it in
it?
the water?
Yeah, me and Clay are going. I told him to stop.
Oh my God, that's so awesome. That's such an awesome hat. It fits you so well. If God himself had a hat store and he built hats, that would be the Nick Amorose edition.
He did have a hat store. He dropped us from the heavens for me. There's a light of, some light just shining on it. Going
A beam.
There was a storm coming in. There was a rainbow, and the end of the rainbow ended where this hat was in the water.
Yeah. I mean, I look to
got Clay
Nick
one
for
too.
fashion. All right, you got Clay one too. Are those going to be your team hats for this year?
Oh yeah.
Are they both red? Are they both red?
You guys will stick out like sore thumbs.
I was pre-fishing on a Vermilion last year. Actually, it was earlier than when we were all there. I went there around the 4th of July with a buddy, and just to kind of get the layout of everything again and get dialed in. And here there's this hat floating in the lake. I was like, well, I'll be the good person and pick that up. It was a dumb old person bucket hat looking thing. And so I casted at it and I missed it and I got really mad. And I had about a 49, 50-incher follow in that must have been sitting there looking at that hat because it was literally 20 feet from the boat that I just flipped out. And then I was reeling in really fast. And here comes a fish screaming in. So I still have that hat, but I'm not sure if that's good luck yet or not because we didn't catch anything on that trip.
I got to tell you a story about Madison. This is like the craziest stuff that ever happened to me. So, Clayton's good friend, well, all of our good friend, Luke Albright that we stay with, was in the boat with them pre-fishing, and they went out. And if there was like a pre-tournament for like fish you catch pre-fishing, like I'm pretty sure Clay and Nick would win every one because they like caught so many fish pre-fishing last year and we had like nothing going on. Like, oh yeah, we got like 5 today. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
I know. Every time we'd get in, like it just would be like, God damn it.
So we had that really nice fish up that I'm pretty sure it was at 45 3/4. We pulled out on it. It's about 1:00 on Friday. I'm like, we're done. Like, we got a plan. No good is gonna happen to this from here on out. I think the meeting's at 3 or 4 o'clock. Let's go get something to eat. Let's go. I text Clayton, where you at? He's, oh yeah, and he's kind of told me where he's at. I'm looking. I'm like, oh yeah, I think I can see you. And I drive over there. It's hot. It's dead. There's not a cloud in the sky. It's dead flat. And we're just kind of sitting there, had our boats tied together, kind of talking. I think I might have stole a beer from him. And Nick's like, hey, is that a rod you use for rubber? I said, yeah, it is. I said, I like that rod. He goes, oh, can I use it? I said, yeah, check it out. Then our boats are tied together. He bombs a cast off the back, like away from shore. And he's, kind of pumping it. And he's like, oh, I like this. I really like this. I don't really like the reel, but I like the rod. And he's talking, he's stopping, reeling, and he's kind of talking. And then he pumps it a couple times. And he's like, yeah, no, I like this. This is pretty good. And like a 45-incher comes up and just crushes it. And he's like, I got one. And we all spin around and we all saw it. Like his fish just like fucking crushes it. And he, of course, fucks it up. And and it spits the bait, and he's like, damn it. And he just like put the bait back on the reel and he hands it back. He's like, I like that rod. That's a nice rod. I like that. And I was like, yeah, that was so yeah, and my bait's just like completely destroyed. I'm like, yeah, you fucking owe me a bait, and
Thanks, man.
and he's like, yeah, ha, ha. He's laughing as I'm hitting waypoint like on my graph.
Like new spot.
He
Thanks,
actually
Nick.
went back there, Trevor and I, during the tournament, I think on Saturday, went back there. I'm like, same conditions, same time. It was hot. There was nothing going on. Went back there and I'm like, why was there a fish here? There was nothing there. There wasn't bait. There wasn't weeds. It was like this like gentle sloping sand beach shoreline. And it was like 11 feet deep. It was like this random fish. But that would only happen to Nick. That's the only person that would happen to.
All right, well let's talk about some we talked about like good tournaments, but is there any individual fish? What's your favorite tournament fish you guys have caught? Let's go around the room and just is there one fish that sticks out? Favorite tournament fish you guys have ever caught? Gus, we'll start with you. I mean, if it's not the one at the chip, I don't know how it couldn't be.
Yeah, I think that's got to be just because of what we said, or at least
not a pike.
What I said, yeah, when I hooked it, I'm like, oh, that's just a pike. I proceed to go, not a pike, not a pike, not a pike. That one probably is my favorite just because of everything that led up to that fish. Obviously, it's not a mega giant. I think it measured somewhere in like the 36-inch range, 36 and a half or 3/4 or something like that. But also the best part of it, we have talked about this before, is that when we put it in the bag, that one boat that was near us that were, I don't know, walleye fishing or something fishing. I don't think they were muskie fishing. They weren't in the tournament for sure. They were like, woohoo, yeah, let's go. Nice catch. How big? And we're like, I don't know, like a 3-footer, 36.
It's 36.
36. And they're
like, oh, cool.
Oh, why are they so fired up about a 36? It's like, well, we needed that one at that point. That one is probably my absolute favorite fish.
I remember the funny part about that one was when I kept saying, that's a big fish for us, meaning like that's a big fish for us in like the standings, but they probably thought like, oh damn, nice. They just caught a 36-incher.
36 is real big. Look at those guys. Look how happy
They're
are.
hugging on the boat, freaking, whatever.
That was a good one. Yeah. Yeah. That was a roller coaster of emotions up to that point. That was my favorite fish. Let's go with Nick now. Got a favorite tournament fish?
Honestly, for me, it's kind of hard to really pinpoint it because the first one I'm going to go with is the first tournament I ever fished when I got my big one in the Alliance tournaments because that's what really got me into muskie fishing. But I don't know, every fish to me is special. Wow, that was really cliche. But I don't know. There's one where we didn't even place top 10 for the PMTT in Eagle River, which, yeah, but that second fish I got, it was just a shit show. So it was hilarious to me, and I like that fish a lot.
Why was it a shit show?
Clay went to net it, grabbed the net. My other rod was stuck in the net, and then I have that rod was like hitting me, and then I got snagged in the bait. Yeah, it was just a shit show, but it was I don't know. It just really sticks out in my head for that one.
Didn't you have one at the chip this last year where you ended up with baits all over your body as well? Did you fall?
Well, yeah, obviously that happens to me.
Yeah, sounds like. Yeah, no, you don't have great footing in the boat from what I've heard.
You try casting off a tackle box.
Fair enough. All right.
No,
Jeremy,
I don't know.
Like
I said, there's like a lot of fish. Just tournament fish. Everyone's special in a way you catch it.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Jeremy, you got one that sticks out?
I would say probably my favorite tournament fish was at 46 and a half at the Alliance tournament. I'm fishing with an 8-year-old that's got about, well, at that point, maybe 18 hours of muskie fishing. experienced in his entire life. And we had no idea that fish was there. It ate top water in the rain, like a bass. It came from underneath it, got underneath the bait, popped it in the air, but like swallowed it. And halfway up, and I hooked that fish, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a big fish. It's a big fish. It's a big fish, and he's coming with the net, and he's 8. He's got a Frable, big catch in his hand, and he's trying to do everything he can and to net this fish, and we ended up hooping it, and it was outside the net. And I'm like, I just hit the button and threw my rod, and I literally went, you know what? I will go to the hospital to land this fish. And I hand landed it like a bass. Like I literally put my hand underneath its gill plate and pulled it with the bait in the net and everything all tangled up onto my lap. And he's like, that's the biggest fish I've ever seen. And I'm like, give me the pliers. It was laying on top of me with the hooks in its mouth. And I got it unhooked and we put it in a bag and we dumped it back down. And in that tournament, you have to register with somebody. And I'm like, I think we just won. Like, we got to go find somebody. So, we got the live well going, and we ended up putting it in a live well, getting some water on it, and we drove real slow, and we found some people, and this guy actually started yelling at us as we pulled up, kind of like, what are you doing? We're fishing here. And I grabbed my tournament hat, and I waved it at him, and I kind of went around him on the outside, and I pulled up, and I said, hey, we got a fish here that we need to register. And he's like, oh, okay, because we were kind of fishing some mid-lake stuff, and 3 guys in a boat, and I said, can I come alongside you? He says, yeah, no problem. So we pulled up alongside of him, and I said, Trevor, open up that live well. And he opened it up, and the guy went, holy shit. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's a good one. And we pulled it out, and the guy actually ended up taking my phone and taking a bunch of pictures of me and Trevor holding it, and then and we ended up winning, and that was Trevor's introduction to muskie fishing, basically. And
Good intro.
that was really special for him and I to go and do that and land a fish like that. And, so I would say that's probably my favorite one.
Yeah, that's an awesome memory. Trevor, what about you? What's your favorite tournament fish so far?
My favorite's definitely got to be my first Kentucky fish. Knowing that was like my first one in Southern United States.
Yeah.
Also knowing that I was one of the only people to catch fish in that day. But my favorite, like, overall in our boat during a tournament was definitely their Madison 46.5. Because that was like, we were just not ready for that. Because then we saw Facebook, we were like 348s caught already. And we didn't have anything going at all. There's a PMTT boat right next to us. And then, like, he just cast out and pumping it and then just smokes it. And it's a really thick 46.5, and we knew that was going to put us up high, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah. That was good to see that picture come through. Well, I don't know if we saw it on Facebook first or if you guys had texted it to us, but we were pretty fired up for you guys. That was a nice fish, and I'm sure there was some good colorful language exchanged after that one hit the net.
Yeah.
Clay, what about you?
I would have to say probably my personal best muskie ever was in the Greater Wisconsin Muskie Tournament. Nick invited me to fish with him. He'd been fishing it with his family for years, and he wanted somebody to, another boat or whatever, split up and somebody fish with him. So I didn't have anything going on and thought it'd be fun to go check it out. And at, I think, 8:00 in the morning on day one, we on our first spot, we were fishing this big, huge point, and there were a bunch of boats that kind of beat us out there. And I noticed that nobody was fishing the very tip of the point. They would kind of work out from both sides towards each other and then turn and leave. So I was like, well, we're going to go fish the tip of it because nobody else is. And like my first or second cast onto the tip, smoked a 50-incher on a Mag Dog. And we had a huge crowd of people around us. I mean, as we were fighting it, I could already see that boats were coming towards us to help us register it. And that was super special. We got done releasing it, and everyone's like, you guys got that one already? And I was like, yeah, I think we're going to go to which that kind of gives away the lake we're on. But yeah, we're going to the bar and we're gonna get a bloody and some chicken wings as soon as that place opens, and we're gonna celebrate a little bit, which I don't even know if we were supposed to do that or not, but
Okay.
yeah, it happened, and yeah, we stumbled out of there after a few hours, and we got on the dock like, oh, we should probably get back to fishing, and just in case, and fish porpoised right outside of our boat, and I was like, okay, we better get back to fishing. We ended up, I think, losing a couple more fish, lost one for sure, saw a few others.
Yeah, but you guys did win that tournament, right?
And that fish ended up being just big enough to win. There was a team that caught 3, I think, but there were 3 people in the boat, and the way the point system works is it's divided by how many people you have in your boat, and for however it worked out, we ended up just inching them out by like 1 or 2 points with that fish, but we
Nice.
cleaned house. That was sweet.
Nice.
What's yours?
Mine might make Jeremy a little bit mad because I know he was in the vicinity when I caught it, but I would say that my favorite one easily was the big big one in Eagle River from 2 years ago in our first ever PMTT event. That was probably the most fun I've ever had, like the most excited I've ever been catching a muskie. I mean, we were fishing in this PMTT tournament, like we've obviously, saw the tournament year in and year out, like being up there that same weekend on the chain, and just like always was, curious, like, man, if we ever fish in one of these, like, would we get completely smoked, or, like kind of what's going on. And that first day, like we were so amped up to go fish the tournament, and like we just totally flopped. Like we had such a bad day, and like we're like, well, this is tournament fishing, like this is really freaking hard. And the next day we got onto a little bit different of a pattern, and I think I've told this story in previous podcasts before, but we've definitely picked up some new listeners since then. But yeah, we got into a different pattern. We ended up catching a small fish early in the day, right away, and so we're like, oh, nice. We got the juices going and got one on the board, and then, yeah, we ended up catching that 46 incher, which at the time was my biggest fish ever on the Eagle River chain. So like, fish there for 15 plus years, never catching anything that size, and then to do it in a PMTT event, and just kind of how it all went down. I mean, we were trolling to give away what we were doing, but we were trolling that day, and we had marked a fish on side imaging, and our bait was supposed to go right over the top of its head. And I looked back and Gus, I think our bait just blew out of the water. And so I reeled it in real quick and cast it back out in the vicinity. I was using, like, at the time, I mean, our trolling setup we're not good. Gus didn't troll as much as he does now. And I don't know, Gus, what reel was that again? It was like an old Abu Garcia.
Abu round reel 6500 with pretty bad drag, not a very high torque reel, or the handle was not a lot you could get out of one turn of that thing, and like some like Shimano Compre, like medium heavy 7.6 or something like that. Some flimsy thing.
And like me, not being a very experienced tournament angler, I was just all excited. I knew there was a fish in the area. I threw it out there. I didn't even reset the drag. And lucky enough, my thumb was on the spool when I went to set the hook when the fish ate, and my thumb slipped up into the reel, and that's kind of what locked the drag down. And so that was the only reason why I think those hooks stuck. And, I don't know how long that fight was, but it was like a couple minutes, I mean, of just sheer nervousness. And we got that fish in the net, and I probably was the loudest I've ever yelled catching a muskie in my entire life. And it was kind of got us going on this tournament thing. Like, oh man, this is a lot of fun. Like, we grew up playing sports, and catching that fish was like, okay.
We heard you yell.
Yeah. Gus is shushing me. And
we were kind of like going around each other there. We had moved to fish casting over there, and we just kind of like kept following the bait. We kept getting farther and farther out and farther out. And we're like, we should troll these, and obviously what our experience is trolling, and you guys are trolling and we were trolling. We were kind of like doing figure eights around each other, and you're like, oh man. I'm like, did you guys see that one on side image? And like, yeah, we did. And I'm like, I just keep dragging baits over its head. And I don't know if it's the one you caught or not, but there was definitely a fish out there that we had all saw. And then all of a sudden, me and Trevor were kind of like, do they have one? Like, because you guys didn't move for like a long time, but like you did a really good job of like making it not known that you had a fish. Like, because and then afterwards, when we went to I think it was at the Derby track that year, we were talking, we ended up with nothing. And you guys came in and were like, yeah, we got a 30 incher this morning. I was like, oh, that's great. And I was like, yeah, and I got a 46. I'm like, what? And you're like, yeah, like right over by you. We were trolling around. I was like, oh, I'm like, well, cool. At least somebody caught it. Like, it was like, I mean, whatever. I mean, it would have been way cooler if we would have caught it, but like, but at least somebody got it, like, and it was good for you guys. I think you guys ended up getting 4. You got 8th. Oh yeah, there's a plaque right there.
Yeah. But that was like that kind of got us being like, all right, we should do these. Like that was so much fun. And that was the live scope year, which oh my god, that sparked a little bit of controversy.
That was a Nick's buddy who's calling him, yeah. But
but yeah, we like I would say that's our favorite because like I think Gus, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but I think that got us going like, all right, we need to fish more of these. That was so much fun. And then like obviously it's gotten more fun last year meeting you guys and hanging out.
I remember talking to you guys in the winter, and it was kind of the same conversation that Nick had with me, where he's just, all this peer pressure, like, oh, do it. Come on, do it. It'll be fun. And then me and Trevor did it that year, did the whole tour. And then the next year was kind of, we were giving you guys a peer pressure, like, oh yeah, come on, come travel with us. Come on. It's fun. It's super fun. It's not really that much money. Like, it's super fun. It's actually incredibly hard.
Yeah, but that was definitely my favorite. I don't know. That was fun and something I'll remember for a long time because came out of nowhere, literally.
Yeah, that was a memorable one. I think it was big fish of the tournament too, which was pretty sweet. I think the way that like it took the picture to not show like the shoreline there or whatever, just like the way it was from above made that fish look like enormous. I don't know. Something about that picture was it made
it's
it
a big June
cool.
fish. It's a big June
very
fish.
Heavy
it
June
fought.
Fish.
It fought like crazy.
Went in the net, and I think it broke a hook or two. Like once it got in the bag, it broke a hook or two. I think the only reason we got that fish was because it was on a medium heavy setup with crappy drag, and it's just all stretching and whatever. And there's a 3-foot fluorocarbon leader there too, because you casted with the trolling.
That was another funny thing about that is like when like we had tried to net that fish probably 2 or 3 times, and we got close, and it just would not come in, and it was making these runs, and I'm just like thinking in my head, I'm like, man, and I think that the year prior, I'd lost a few big fish. I'm just like thinking in my head, I just remember being like, God, how is this going to go wrong? Like something's going to happen because it was just on for too long. And we got really lucky, but like, just kind of funny, like with where we netted that fish. I mean, I was all the way in like the back left corner of the boat by the motor, and Gus is up by like the trolling motor netting it. Cause I'm just like trying to drag it in. And
you're walking back.
3-foot long leader, and Gus is yelling, it's in.
Yeah,
like,
and then that's when he screamed
straight out of super.
I was like, because there were plenty of boats near us. Not that either way with the net in the water, they would have figured it. Put 2 and 2 together, like, oh, I think they got a fish. But yeah, that was just funny in the moment thing.
Hey Gus, or Max, that was an awesome story about your best fish ever. But like, do you have a story about like a heartbreaker? Like, and I know what story you want to tell because I saw you at the boat landing like within 15 minutes later, and you looked like you were ready to like off yourself. Like we were gonna talk you off the ledge, and you were like, "I'm done with musky fishing. This is stupid. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I hate this lake. I hate this boat. This is dumb. I hate it."
Are you talking about the Vermilion one?
I'm exactly talking about the Vermilion one. You're usually pretty much like a pretty even keel, up, like you pretty much,
guy.
I know what I'm gonna get. Yeah, you're a pretty positive guy. You looked like I was like, holy shit, I want to go give that guy a hug right now. Like, but I was busy fighting fucking anacondas off the back of my motor, if you remember that. It was goddamn. I'm fishing open structure on Vermilion all day, middle of the fucking lake, and I come in to put my freaking motor, my DD26 on my motor, and there's a goddamn snake in my engine. A snake. And the woman's like, oh, it fell out of the trees. I'm like, what trees? I've been in the middle of the lake all day. I'm going 60 miles an hour. There's a fucking snake in my engine.
Well, I
rethink everything now.
So the vermilion fish sucked. I felt bad. I mean, I was down. I mean, the one part about that story that I haven't shared on the pod, I think, was like the funniest part is like after you get done, you know, like, all right, we're off to the award ceremony. We're gonna go see what's going on. And like Gus and I drive separately. So like I had my own car up there. And I just remember it was like a 30-minute car ride from where we were staying to like the awards ceremony. And like we had caught a nice fish that tournament. I should have been in a great mood. And I remember like I drove in just sheer silence for 30 minutes, just being like, God damn it. Like that would have been so cool. And like I even my ride home, like it was just the weirdest feeling because like we did well in the tournament. Like I caught this nice fish. I was really excited or whatever, but like seeing that size of a fish and like you hear all these stories on vermilion and you know, like they're all folklore, but like then you go up there and you actually put hooks into one where like it literally looked like Gus turning sideways in the water, where I'm like, oh, that was big.
36.
Yeah, Gus isn't the biggest dude, but like imagine Gus, you know, flailing sideways on a spinner bait in 2 feet of water. I'm like, oh, that was big. And you know, the nice part about staying together and like hanging out is like I did take a little solace like in that too, because like I mean Clay and Nick, like you guys, I mean that's a tournament like you talk about the one on Leech, but like on the one in Vermilion, like you guys easily could have won that tournament, you know, top 5 probably at, you know, worst, but like just it's the way shit goes. Like you're gonna lose fish. As Clay
and here's
says,
me and Trevor sticking
fish.
low to mid 30s, just
yeah,
bringing home the hardware, baby.
Yeah, top 10. Yeah, those Vermilion beasts.
Just driving around, fishing shit that looks fishy, and just, you know,
yeah,
dragging home some hardware. I
you guys
told him
had
on the
any-
way on Saturday when we were coming to that awards, I'm like, there is no fucking way we're in the top 10. There is no way. Like we had a 34 and a half and a 37 or some change or whatever it was, you know, and I'm like, there's no way, you know, and we get there and they announce it and then they didn't have Gregg's fish. And I'm like, oh, here it is. Yep. We got 11th place and we ended up squeaking out at 10th. And I'm like, oh my God, like that was like we didn't have. I will say this. We did move an absolute giant Saturday morning. Like it was the biggest 48 incher I've ever seen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds stupid, but that fish was like 40 pounds.
Yeah.
But it was not, it was like 48 inches long. I mean, I've caught 50s, I've seen 50s. Like this fish was 48 and it was just a giant, but it was swimming so slow. Like I actually thought it was swimming backwards. Like it was not interested in what I was doing. It was just kind of like, who are these two dipshits throwing baits at me, waking me up 7 o'clock in the morning? Like I'm not interested in this bait. I just want to see what you guys look like. Like,
have you, Jeremy, have you had any bad heartbreaks in your years of tournament fishing?
You know, I'll tell you, we were in Pewaukee in the championship 2 years ago, and we were doing something a little different than the guys that ended up winning it were around us pretty much from Wednesday on. You know, we didn't realize that they were winning the tournament. Like we didn't see them catch a fish. But they ended up with a 50. I think they had a 44. You know, and we were just we kind of figured something out. We were moving fish. We were having a hard time getting them to eat, and Trevor hooked a pretty nice one. Was it Saturday or Friday? Saturday. He hooked a pretty nice fish, and we really had a hard time a couple of years ago. We lost a lot of fish. We had, I mean, right to the boat, and we just had issues getting nets under them, and just weird stuff was happening. And he had this fish. It was probably 42, 43 inches, and he had it right, and I had the net in the water, and he's leading it in, and it just kind of, you know, when it just kind of turn off when they have rubber, and they kind of sit there for a second, and you're like, oh no, and Trevor just went, are you kidding me? And he just walked back to the boat and just started casting again. Like it was just like, we almost like expected it to happen. We had lost so many fish. So at the end of the day, I mean, that's a cut tournament. If you don't have nothing on the board, you're done. You know, there was, I think, 45 minutes left. And we had just passed Rob Call. And we were talking to him. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, oh, it doesn't look like we're fishing Sunday. And he's like, yeah. He says, we ain't got nothing going on either or something. And I said, yeah, well, our luck, we'll catch a 30 and a quarter, with like 5 seconds left, and, we'll end up fishing Sunday for nothing, and yeah, we're kind of laughing, and we went past him, and we took the inside. He was on the outside, and I ended up sticking a 43 and a half, and we were pretty excited about it. And, it was maybe half an hour left, and we're like, all right, yeah, we made the cut. This is great. I think 17 boats made it. And, uh, we were pretty excited about it. The next day we fished, and there was 0 fish caught on Pewaukee. And there was 1 fish caught on, I believe, Oconomowoc. It was the only fish caught on Sunday. And that guy ended up taking, I believe, second. And we did the math. And I'm like, if that fish was like 42 and a half, we would have had second. But we had like 12th or something like that. I'm like, oh. And that was our first year, we had set a goal going in our first year of the PMTT. I'm like, I just want to make the stage. Let's just make the stage one time, even if it's on a Saturday, whatever. Let's try to pull out a top 10, and it just didn't work out for us, but we made the championship. I thought we had a pretty good showing there. And, the next year, we go down the cave, we do nothing. Everybody else catches fish. It's great. The exact opposite of the year before, we were the only ones that caught a fish. And this year, everybody caught a fish and we didn't. We were a little bit down. We go to Madison and we ended up, taking a 4th, with, I mean, God, what a double, 2 of them over 45 inches. You're like, really, 4th place? Like, I mean, but it's, Marek and Gillich and Lejeski. I mean, they really put a show on Sunday. I mean, you can't fault those guys for that. I mean, those are some really quality fish they caught.
That was crazy.
But, and then we ended up doing it again, taking a stage again in Vermilion, which was, super exciting for us. So, I mean, now you just kind of set your goals a little higher and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll get on to goals here probably to kind of close it up. But I mean, I know Clay and Nick, you guys have both talked on your Chippewa flowage from a few years back. Obviously, got your redemption this year. But has there been any like individual fish that stuck out for you guys that were heartbreakers that could have changed your fortunes in a tournament?
Vermilion, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that was the most frustrating tournament for me ever. And we've had a few, definitely like major letdowns where we were dialed in on a pattern, but I didn't even have to pre-fish. I love Vermilion so much. I was blessed with a couple of good trips the first few times I was there, and going into it, I knew where fish were. We moved a pile of fish. We didn't actually burn any. So we were feeling really, really good. At least I was, and I've never had so much confidence in my life. And for whatever reason, I guess it's just not meant to be, and luck was not on our side, but we couldn't keep anything pinned. And I absolutely lost my shit when I lost that last fish, and had to cut most of it off the YouTube channel or the video on YouTube just because probably a little, it was pretty dramatic. I was very, very, very upset, and pretty much was ready to throw in the towel at that time. But I mean, sometimes I guess if it's just not meant to be, it's not meant to be. But no, there's times for us when there's just we just can't. We did everything right, but nothing right, and just couldn't keep them pinned. I mean, that was the one. The other one would have been the first time we were on the chip for the championship. We went like 0 for 5 or 6 or something in the first 2 days. We were dialed in there too. We had caught a couple fish pre-fishing, but none of them, the 2 were not on our good spots that we had kind of saved. We knew fish were, and we were saving them for the tournament. And we were all over those fish, and we lost them every which way possible. But the first thing in the morning, I've told this story on day 1. I had a probably high 30s 40-incher come in, hot in the figure 8 on the blades, go around and around the figure 8, and he ate it, and I set the hook hard and perfect, and actually snapped him off setting the hook. And the only thing I can think of was that I didn't check my line after catching the fish pre-fishing, and it must have been frayed or something from the fish the day before or whatever, and had a weak spot. But I looked at Nick and I was like, that's not only does that suck, whatever, but that's not a good sign. Like I had the worst feeling that that was kind of the sign of what was to come, and it certainly was. Even though we stayed positive the entire time, thinking, oh, our luck will turn around. You can't lose all of them. We went 0 for 3. Okay, we lost 3. Whatever. We're pissed, but hey, we're on fish. We're gonna get the next one, and it just kept happening and happening and happening, and so there's definitely been some heartbreaks like that, and I don't even know how to explain it. I don't know why those things
So
happen.
let me ask you this though, because I know that there's going to be people listening to this like on their way down to cave, whether they're people that are fishing in their PMTT for the first time or guys that have been doing it for years, or people that are going to be going to tournaments for their first time this summer. We've had a lot of people reach out saying, "Hey, I'm going to start fishing tournaments this year," yada yada yada, and like I do think handling shittiness throughout tournament days is like a big deal. So like I guess if you could talk about like maybe how some of these times have like kind of, I don't know, like what you've learned from them, I guess, like moving forward, going into this year, going into that next tournament after Vermilion, you guys have that letdown of Vermilion, but then you go to the chip and like crush it. And it's truly like the lowest of lows and the highest of highs, I feel like at times tournament fishing. So like I guess if you had any advice on how to kind of balance those emotions, or like what you've learned from, some serious setbacks and stuff like that, I think that'd be good to hear.
And obviously we're never going to forget those times, but you just got to put it in the back of your mind, and every time you go out on a lake, hope for the best, and go into it thinking that you got a shot, and and you're going to go have fun. Key is to have fun, and we've realized we're not going to make a career or a living out of tournament fishing, at least not musky fishing anyways. So I've, for one, have changed my perspective. Yeah, I like to go and see how I measure up to all the other fishermen and, fish against the best. And there's some adrenaline to that. But, and I've said this in other podcasts, on here with you guys and stuff, it's so much about the friends and the camaraderie and, hanging out. And if you, as a new angler and you want to give it a try, if you can afford to go do it, absolutely try it, because it is so much fun. It's a rush. You meet some awesome people. The muskie community is really great, and just go and introduce yourself to us. If you see us out and about or something, or most of these other guys too are just really great, and they're willing to have a beer with you and chop it up. And I just think that's so great, like that we can go anywhere, and just hang out with these people in this trail that we do. So it's always fun, no matter what, no matter how good of fishing, no matter how bad the fishing is. We always seem to have fun and have a couple drinks afterwards, and pissed off maybe as much as we are, then you start looking back and laughing at some of the the funny things that maybe happened in the middle of it, or we do something stupid that night, or who knows what. But you just gotta keep it light. Don't take it too seriously. When the day's over, if luck's on your side, you're gonna do well, and if it isn't, you're not. And everybody that's in these tournaments knows how to fish. These guys, they're not doing it coming green, first time ever muskie fishing, or not jumping in a tournament. These people know what they're doing out there. Everybody knows what they're doing to a certain extent. It's a matter of just being in the right spot at the right time. And when it's your time, man, that's an awesome feeling, catching fish. And don't get down about not catching fish, because that 100% is going to happen. And you just got to put those, times behind you and be like, well, next time I got an even better shot, because this one was bad. The next time is probably going to be good, and move on from it.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Kind of leads right into my next question, I guess. I'm sure if there's other things after this, we'll be happy to discuss it. But expectations, goals. I mean, as you touched on, it's a lot of fun no matter how things kind of shake out. But I think it's always good to kind of set some goals and kind of keep yourself, honest throughout this trail. So what would be your guys' expectations or goals heading into this trail year?
I think kind of the similar goals as to what we have every year. And one of mine is to at least catch a fish, our team to catch a fish in every tournament, be in the running for team of the year. And, if we can get to that point, we've placed in a few of these and done pretty decent, but we are still looking for our first place in a PMTT event. So that's a stretch of a goal, but our time is coming, and I'm going to make that one of my goals this year, just because, it pushes ourselves to be as good as we can be. If it doesn't work out, it's not like I'm going to quit or I'm going to pout about it or anything, but I want to set a good high goal. I think we got a good shot. We've been doing this long enough, and we are pretty good at breaking down new water and figuring stuff out. And I think it's going to happen if we can stick it out long enough. I think we'll definitely take a first, but that is one of my goals, whether it's in a qualifier or a championship. Doesn't really matter to me, but take a first in a PMTT event would be definitely something I'm shooting for this year.
Trevor, what about you?
Hey,
Jeremy Trevor.
I want to say something before Trevor goes, and I'm not trying to jump the line here or whatever, but I'm at a different point in my fishing career than Trevor is, so my goals are a little bit different. I thought it was awesome that you guys won Team of the Year last year, because that honestly has been a goal of mine. I think that's really something that's hard to do, man. I mean, at the end of the year, all these teams fish, and what is there, 73 trail teams this year? Was there? Okay, yeah, six, yeah, upper 60s, whatever. That seems to be pretty consistent, that number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was there 3 teams in contention last year? 2 teams caught fish in every event. That's something, I mean, that really is. I mean, to be that consistent, to go to different waters, and especially for you guys that hadn't fished these waters before, and I mean, that's really a kind of a tip to the hat to you guys. I mean, you guys did wonderful. For myself, me personally, I would be just tickled to win Team of the Year. That's my personal goal. Now, Trevor is at a different stage in his fishing career. He's at the earliest stage, and he's done really well, and I've been super proud of him. And I'm kind of curious to hear what his goals are, because we haven't really talked about this outside of hey, let's try to make the stage, once this year. Let's try to do this, but we haven't really talked about it, So I'm kind of really curious to see, and that's kind of why I jumped the line to see, I wanted to kind of.
No, it's funny because even just last year, when Gus and I literally had this conversation going into the PMTT year, where I'm like, we're doing this, we're spending some money, some real money to do this. What's the goal? Why are we doing this?
And I think Clay kind of hit on that. None of us are going to get rich tournament muskie fishermen,
right?
Right? It's not. I mean, and we have some friends, that have done really well. None of them have quit their jobs to go, you know what I mean? Even though they've won a lot of money and done some things, done incredibly well. I mean, more than you would ever think, but this is, I mean, for me personally, this is a hobby. I'm not a professional muskie fisherman. I don't guide. I don't, it's a hobby for me. And like Clay says, keep it fun, and I know, and you guys can attest to this, when I come back to the cabin at night, and I'm just bitching about everything, and I said, and Nick starts yelling at me, and I'm like, this is part of my process. Honestly, I bitch about how much I hate muskie fishing, and this sucks, and this is stupid, and why do we come here and spend all this money, and why the fuck are we doing this, and what do normal people do for fun? They don't don't do this, but but it is, at the end of the day, it's fun. It's just how I am. And I vent, I live out loud. It's kind of, that's just kind of how I do my thing, but I'm really kind of curious to see what Trevor, as a young muskie fisherman, has, to say about what his goals are,
Yeah.
So everybody's main goal should obviously be Team of the Year. That's my main goal, but some goals that I'm shooting for is to get a big trophy, because I've placed 4th on 2 pretty big fish. and top 3 would be pretty nice. Also, just even if just catching one in every tournament would be pretty cool. After having a year of catching nothing in the tournament, so
Yeah. I like the big trophy goal. Get some big hardware to put next to all those other hockey ones that you got, I'm sure.
Well, my goal is a little more simple than most people's.
Here we go. Here we go.
Honestly,
Next world.
I want to catch a fish during the whole tour. Not during the tournament, just one fish for the whole year, and I'm set. Because you can't catch 2 if you don't catch 1.
Looks like Clayton's catching all the fish. Oh boy.
I know. Brian was working the numbers on that. Listen to that podcast. He was really working the numbers on that 2 to 1. You can't catch 2 if you don't catch 1. So I don't know if Brian really came back with the results yet. I know he was kind of working on that.
Yeah, he's still crunching those numbers. We'll report back when we.
He's our math
when we hear
guy.
from him.
Yeah,
He just went to Florida to meet with a specialist on the numbers.
Is specialist a word?
Yeah, that's a Nick. It's Nick's world. We're just living in it.
We're just living in Nick's world. It's just
he creates his own language.
He does. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to see what Brian comes up with once he actually gets those numbers down on paper and does that crunch in there. See what that 2-for-1 deal is there. Yeah. But looking forward to that.
You talk about processes, Brian's got his own process.
Trevor and I were listening to that podcast when we were fishing last fall, and I hear Nick like, "You can't get 2 if you can't get 1," and I could hear Brian like typing on a calculator. I was just dying. I laughed for like a half an hour after he did that. He's like, "Yeah, I don't know. I'm just crunching the numbers on that."
He's definitely missed here this evening. I'm sure he would have brought some fire questions to the table. Who knows? He'd be asking about bait mods and all that good stuff.
Always about the bait mods. You putting twister tails on your bulldogs?
Paddle tails last night at the fucking banquet.
Oh yeah.
He'd have been all up in there.
He would have been. He loves anything with a paddle tail, a tail, anything that has like 9 joints in it. That's just wiggling and moving all over.
Gus, what's your expectations for this year? I know we've kind of talked about them a little bit privately, but
yeah,
what are you thinking?
I mean, initially the big one, I'd say I think last year our initial goal was doing in the trail for the first time ever was just to make the championship. So honestly, I'm starting it right off there is to make the championship by any means necessary. I mean, you catch a fish, me catch a fish here, there, anywhere, it doesn't matter. That's goal number 1 for sure. And then I think I got to follow up with what Trevor said, because we're lacking we're yet to get our first top 3 finish, and I think that's a big stepping stone. I mean, yes, we did manage to hook into a fish here, a fish there last year at the right times, right places. I think it was two at Cave, two at Madison and stuff, but we haven't quite put it fully together to like really get those fish down. I mean, we caught fish during tough bites, so our 1 fish put us in the top 10. Luckily, that's not going to happen every time. There's going to be a tournament where we catch a 36 and we're going to be 39th place. I mean, we're not going to get the points we need to get anywhere. So I think a big goal is to really, really dial into a pattern at one of these lakes and get a top 2, 1, 3, the big trophy. Jeremy just said second place sucks. Okay, we're gonna get a goal is to get. I was just about to say. Our goal is to get 3rd or 1st. If you're 2nd, you're last. Heard it here first.
When Trevor was like 9 years old, we fished Paul's Pro-Am. It was like kind of one of these things. We're like, oh yeah, we'll fish it. And the first day I stuck like a 43 3/4, and Trevor keeps talking about going back to this spot. You got to go back there. You got to go back there. You got to go back where you caught that fish. I'm like, dude, that's a 1 fish spot. There is no other fish there. I guarantee it. It's tiny. It's like a 3 cast spot. There's no other fish there. No, we should go back there. And I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, I'm listening to freaking 9-year-old kid, like telling me where I got to fish. Like, well, fine, let's do it. Let's go back there. And he sticks a 37. And I was like, wow, I'm stupid. Like, okay, I was completely wrong. So I'm like, oh my God, it's just Paul's Pro-Am, like 3 fish usually wins it, right? Like we got a 43 3/4 and a 37. That's a pretty good double, right? I'm like, we're sitting pretty good. 10 minutes later, I stick a 40-incher. I'm like, oh, we got this. This is in a bag. Like, I dump them with like 3 minutes left, 8 and 8. It would have measured. They have to be 34. It was probably 34, 35, 8 quick. I didn't really see it. And I'm like, well, we probably don't need that one. And we come in and everybody's like, you guys got this. You got it. Like, what do you got? I'm like, 43 3/4, a 40 and a 37. They're like, oh my God, yeah, you won. His mom comes down, his grandma's there, everybody's ready to take pictures, and this dude walks up and he's like, good friend of mine, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? He's like, oh, I had a pretty good day. We got a 40 and a 44. And I'm like, oh, did you get any yesterday? He's like, oh, yeah, you got us. And I'm like, oh, did you get one yesterday? He's like, well, yeah, we got a 39. And I'm like, wait, all those fish are bigger than the either as big or bigger than the fish that we caught. Like, you won.
That ain't good.
And it was like, oh my God, heartbreaking. I think it was like 4 points or something. We got second place. And I'll tell you, the check is better at second than it is at third, but man, that second place sucks.
It stings. Yeah, definitely see that.
What about you, Max? What do you got for the goals 2024?
A lot of similar ones you guys had. I think my biggest one, I think I told you about, Gus, but like it's the same thing you were saying, like the goal for me this year is to have at least one day where we're leading. Like whether it's a Saturday, obviously you prefer it to be a Sunday or a Saturday at Tonka, but like to show like, okay, we didn't just grind out like one bite, like we actually put the pieces together and like had a banner day, like just crush fish out there for a single day. And so, I hope it comes on the end of the tournament, obviously, but yeah, it'd be awesome to like be leading a PMTT event at one point in time. And then, obviously to catch fish in every event is a goal. And obviously making the championship is a goal, which will happen if you catch fish at every event. But I think the big one this year is to like really put the pieces together and just have a great day. And even if we do that and we're not in first, like that's fine. But like just have one of those days where you're like, man, everything kind of came together. I think that's a goal.
Yeah, I like the way you put it there, where maybe it doesn't end up being at first, but we're like, man, we just did everything we could and we put that together. Yeah.
Because like it sounds stupid, but I feel like, even last year, like we got really lucky and like we were able to grind out some fish when we needed to, but there were other, opportunities that like you missed where it's like it didn't really all fully come together on a given day. So it'd be really fun to have one of those, like, after seeing Nick and Clayton after their second day at the chip, and Clayton was like, that was one of the better days of tournament fishing I've ever had, where they stuck. I don't know how many fish you guys caught that second day.
3 or 4,
three or
4,
three or 4 fish.
Oh yeah, won the first. So you're at 4 at that point. Yeah.
But just to have one of those days where you feel like you really nailed it, put up a good game plan and executed it well.
Yeah. Well, one last goal for me is just to have a grand old time with you guys traveling to all these. Yee.
Starts
Let's
out
go
here
muskie hunting.
in we're then 48 hours of takeoff to cave. So this will be coming out the day before. Well, I guess a few days before the tournament starts. But our muskie season starts here, gents, and in just a couple days. So I'm pretty excited.
This is gonna be we are all very pumped here. Clayton just said it's gonna be epic. Jeremy's got something to say.
So we're leaving in, what time is it? It's 10 o'clock. So it's 7 plus 24. So 31 hours. So I'm excited that in 29 and a half hours, Nick's going to start packing to go to cave. He just kind of just does this thing, but it works out for him. It always just seems to work. We're just living in Nick's world. It just works out.
All he needs is that Bass Pro Shop hat, that Muskies on Tap sweatshirt, and he's good to go.
Yeah, he's all into it. And you know, the awesome thing about staying at Cave is we're right next to Crashes.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to spend like less than $3,000 when I'm there because like the first year we were traveling with these guys and went there and they had a pile of legend tournaments. It was like a pile. And I broke an eyelet on one of my rods and like they're like, I'm like, can you fix this? They're like, well, we have some you can glue on there. Nick's like, oh, I can glue it on. We went back. I'm like, what's the story with these rods? And I'm like, well, we didn't get our order because of COVID and blah blah blah. So like 3 years of orders came in, they're like 30% off. So I went there to get an eyelet and I came back with like 3 rods. But all those rods had eyelets on them. So I thought that was pretty mission accomplished, basically. So it's a cool bait store. And then Nick got yelled at one year because he walked in there with a beer. Well, it is a dry county, but you can consume alcohol. You just can't purchase it there. So,
Oh shit.
yeah. So bring your own beer because when we go to Tony's on Thursday night, like they don't have any beer.
That's wild.
They got other stuff if you want to alter your mind, but but they don't have any beer.
Good stuff.
Tony's place is cool. Like it's like a plywood fortress, and like he's got all these baits, and Trevor goes and pilfers his baits, and we end up buying some shit from him all the time. But like it's I look forward to going to Tony's. Like it's interesting. It's like it's different than like, you know, and I'm excited to go on Gregg's houseboat. And is it not in Scotts Creek? Is it somewhere else? Oh, so it won't even be that far of a drive for us.
I'm pumped. Yeah, Tuesday can't come soon enough. Let's get down there and let's have a blast. Sounds like things are shaping up pretty good for us this year. Fingers crossed that that the bite will be good when we get down there. I mean, the weather seems to be great, upper 60s, up into the 80s. So it's going to be a good week for everyone that's listening to this, that's heading down there. Best of luck. Come say what up to any of us if you see us around. But yeah, can't wait to get down there and start fishing. That first cast is going to feel weird. I feel like I've just been pent up for the last 6 months, so I'm ready to go.
Quick side note, you probably haven't heard yet, Max, but I figured out my boat issue after being very upset and wanting to kill people. Well, which I still kind of want to kill people because it was a pretty stressful weekend. But it started with I might have sold my old boat, and I went out to start it to send a video to this guy coming 8.5 hours maybe to get it. And my battery was dead in that boat. So I put that in a charger, went and grabbed my battery out of the Ranger. And there's a huge ground was pinched underneath the battery, just laying there unhooked up to anything. And I was like, that's interesting. So I went out and did the whole Triton boat thing and runs just fine. Everything's good. And charge those batteries. And then I was farting around in the boat, you know, getting ready to start tearing wires out again because pulling my hair out, trying to figure out why I don't have power to my panel. I was like, well, I'll just hook that ground up and, you know, whatever. And so I put that on the battery and went and hit the power switch and everything turned on and it worked just fine. So
let's go.
Those guys are jack wagons, and I don't know how they probably, I don't know why they would have pulled that. They had no business pulling that battery out of the compartment for one thing. But apparently they did for whatever reason. And when they put it back in there, they just set it on top of some ground wires and opted not to hook them up or whatever. So
Jesus. Well,
don't take anything to that place. I'm not going to throw any names out there yet. But if anybody asks in the next podcast, you can go ahead and throw the name out there.
That same place sends me a bill for $1,100 every month, and I refuse to pay it because they did the same exact thing to my boat.
Oh yeah.
I dropped it off there and I'm like, do this. And I showed up and they're like, I'm like, all the things that you said you did are on the invoice, but I can clearly see you didn't do them. I can see them from here. And they're like, what do you mean? No, we did all that. If we billed you for it, we did it. I'm like, so the brakes that I brought to you in a box, you put in? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, I can see the box and the brakes. And they're sitting exactly where I put them in the boat. I
Well-
would not take stuff there. If
Yeah,
that was the only Ranger dealership left in the Midwest, I would have a different boat. I would not buy it from there.
Well,
They told me
glad-
they didn't know what a 521 was, and I said, "Have you ever been in a Ranger website?" They're like, "Of course we have. We've been selling Rangers for 20 years." I said, "It's the boat on the cover of the website. Like when you go to the website, it's the boat on there." And they're like, "Well, we don't really sell those here."
That's
okay,
brutal.
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely have. Well, I guess I should say Brian specifically has not held back flaming other businesses for screwing his shit up. So
You guys really went hard on
guys are-
fucking Brad Rue with that quad dog, man. That was. I was listening to it. I was like, "Holy shit! Like this is bad. like Brad Rue's gonna burn your shit down." You know what's fucked up is I bought one. Gus was at my house the other day. I was like, "Dude, check this out." He's like, "You fucking bought one of those?" I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, kind of questioning my decision now.
All right. Well, we'll give a better review at the quad dog when we actually fish one. We've still yet to do that. And
I'll be throwing that bitch on Wednesday.
Yeah, Akuma's
yeah.
on our. Akuma's
I
on
gotta
Brian's
see
shit
how
list,
it feels.
Oh yeah.
So
You gotta
every
let us
year I
know.
go to cave, it's the same fucking deal. All the baits I bought in the winter, like my whole first day of pre-fishing is just fucked. Because
Yeah.
all I do is grab fucking baits that I bought all winter and throw them.
Well, that's what I'm gonna be doing. I can't wait. I cannot wait. There's so many things I'm pumped to throw.
Oh, Bam Bams are going on. We're throwing that pink Bam Bam right away.
You and I
Fuck yeah, we
both.
do. You think you got a secret, motherfucker? Like, no. Me and Gus are the only two that have pink Bam Bams. We're gonna win that bitch. Gus, you're gonna take second. I'm gonna take first.
Gus was the one who didn't. Gus was the one who was questioning the pink color. I copped the pink. I can't wait to throw that thing down there.
I was like, I'm not buying that piece of shit. And fucking Brady's like, put my name on your fucking jersey and threw that pink one at us. So he gave it to us.
If one of us wins a PMTT with a Bam Bam, we got to get an inner lip tattoo. Just Bam Bam right in the inside of the lip. I think that's going to be a rule for this year.
Clayton just said that's all you. I agree. That ain't happening.
All right. Hey, we'll scrap it. No idea.
Hey, the hate only started with the pink tube, and the sus tube ended up catching a fish. So
yeah,
it's proved itself. Baits are
all
done.
right. Gus, what do you
But,
think? Should we wrap this one up? Maybe you and Clay give out your guide. Nick, drop your bait. Jeremy, if anyone needs a house destroyed or any excavating work, feel free to drop your business.
Yeah.
Trevor, I don't know what you're up to this summer, but I'm sure you're doing something cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. This will be an interesting one to edit because I don't have a lot of time and I want to spend as much time hanging out at Cave. So to all the listeners that even got this far, there's a good chance it's just as long as it is and stuff is just going unedited and unhinged. No, this is not live. This isn't live. This is just for if if they're still around somehow at our God knows what 2.5, 2:45 total with the Gregg segment. But yeah, appreciate all the listeners. But if you want to go check out my guide page, it's www.sugsfishing.com. Sugs Fishing on Instagram and Facebook. I got slots yet for smallmouth fishing in May, and then a good portion of June is left. If you're looking at July for muskie, that's few and far between. But let's get out muskie fishing, and I'll pass the mic now to Nick.
All right, I'm Nick Amorose with Hammer Customs. Gonna have some new shit coming out next year.
Awesome.
God, salesman of the century.
That was awesome.
Love
That was an awesome intro. Got some new shit coming out.
Nick makes great baits for everyone listening to this. Check out his stuff.
I'm Jeremy Barber. I don't do anything in the fishing world. I dig holes in the ground. People shit in them. That's about my story. Barber Septic and Excavating.
Let's
Hit it
go,
up.
baby. Come on.
All right, Clayton Spiess here with This'll Do Outdoor Adventures, running Muskie Guide trips. You can look me up on Facebook, Instagram. Facebook, I have my Clayton Spiess account, and This'll Do Outdoor Adventures. Instagram is just under my name, Clayton Spiess. I have a YouTube channel, This'll Do Outdoor Adventures, which has a pretty cool series going on from a week in the woods last year. Some really cool footage on that. Check it out, like it, subscribe it if you haven't already. Hopefully you enjoy it. It was really fun. It was a really fun week, and it's been really fun editing it and chopping it all up, reliving stuff. There's so much happened. It was really hard to remember everything. So a lot of action. And if anybody wants to get out with me, I'll be guiding up in Northwoods area, Vilas Oneida Forest and beyond. I have openings scattered a little bit here and there throughout the whole summer and fall, and as late as the lakes decide to stay open this year. So look me up. My number 715-891-1046, or just shoot me a message on the socials if you want. Thanks.
Trevor, what do you got?
Trevor Barber, and you guys gotta check out an upcoming YouTube channel I'm making right now with next year's trips, the PMTT, and league nights,
Nice.
and Northland Pines bass fishing team.
Shout out.
Shout out. Yeah. Trevor's going to be the most versatile angler up here in the Northwoods in like a year and a half and smoke our asses and everything. So good thing you guys are on our Monday Night Muskie League team. Yeah. Well, this is the fantastic night, gents. I don't know. We don't have Brian here to do our little typical outro. And I'm not great at outros, but I think that kind of wraps it up, puts a pin in that one. This is definitely going to be our longest podcast. So, thanks again for listening, everybody. Tell a friend, hit the follow button or notifications. That would be great. Appreciate you listening in again, and we'll see you on the next episode.